to LSRTV's continuing coverage of the Major Series, the penultimate race of the season here, round number 13, at the biggest, baddest racetrack in all of Australia, live from New South Wales. It's the Bathurst, the Mountain Mount Panorama. Happy to have you all in here, wherever you may be joining us from. I'm David Schildhouse, joined alongside by Rachel Whiteford and Taylor Fry. Welcome you in here to what should be a very exciting and grueling race here at the Mountain. V8 supercars on tap here tonight for 81 laps around this 3.86 mile, 23 turn racetrack. And Rachel, I'll put it to you right off the bat. You come into a race like this, you know you got a very technical racetrack where a lot of mistakes can happen, and those mistakes are punished heavily. What's got to be the strategy if you're going to survive 81 laps here and get a good finish?
Well, surviving around here is the critical component for these guys. It's safety first. Just make sure you actually keep the car on the track, because if you come off it here, there's no forgiving. There's no room for error. There are concrete barriers. There's no kind of taking it easy at Bathurst, but at the same time, you've got to try and run it about 90% rather than 100 if you want to get to the end of this thing. This is not a short race. We have 81 laps here tonight for the 500 kilometers, and it's going to be an endurance race in more than just these guys' temperament as a driver. It's going to also be the car surviving to the end. They'll be in the pits more than just for fuel and tires, that's for sure.
Absolutely, and some playoff or championship implications, I should say here, as you saw on the screen. Mike Kelly leading the Atlantic Pro standings by 76 markers over Riley Thompson. So, Taylor, you know, a lot of things on the line here with 2 races left, including tonight. These guys got to get after and make sure they have a good points night. Got to be real careful out there, but if you're Mike Kelly, you really just have to run your own race, or do you need to employ a different strategy to make sure you come out of here with an even bigger points lead?
Honestly, the best strategy to go with is to try and get as many points as you can. Heading into Myrtle Beach, which is their final race of the season, it's going to be quite with how tight this track is. It's going to be quite easy to, you know, head into Myrtle Beach with less than what he has right now, 74 points, something like that. And with how the point system is, we are probably going to see the championship locked up today if our points leader Mike Kelly has a great race.
All right, 2 things to keep an eye on there, possibly locking up a championship, but green flag's down and away. We'll get to your starting lineup or where they run as we get up to it here. Down into turn 1, a lot of guys overshooting already. Maybe they don't know it's 81 laps, but a good, clean getaway for your pole sitter. That was Eric Smith in the number 32. That was Matthew Thunhorst in the 98, and second, Riley Thompson, Travis Henderson, Brandon Whitworth, the top 5 starters there, as they all file away down this first long straightaway into the right-hander, getting up to speed. These guys got to be patient, got to take care of their equipment, and we saw, Rachel, some of these guys already getting off the road.
Absolutely, that's Brandon Whitworth there in the 377, who went a little bit wide in Hell Corner. That's the first corner we have here on the lap, of course. Heading up now through the Castrol cutting, up on lap number 1, and the car's roaring up there, up the mountain on that long climb. Eric Smith making a big gap at the start of this one, getting away from the rest of the field. Early days here, clearly at home on the mountain. Qualified pole with 2:0. I believe it was his qualifying time. If I'm looking at this one here, is I think it was 2:04. So very, very fast in this one. And turns out this is what happens, guys, when we put an oval commentator in the chair for a road race. They think, you know, everyone pulls off and does a lap round before they start. So we can forgive poor David for that one, but must have run through that grid as we have got a crash coming down now through Big Dipper, actually just over Lukey Heights. And I think that was the Volvo machine of the 9. Yeah, that was indeed. That was Thomas Peterson there, crashing just over Lukey Heights. But quick rundown on our starting grid tonight, of course. It's Eric Smith, Matthew Tolhurst, Riley Thompson, Travis Henderson, Brandon Whitworth, Michael Lane, Henry Bennett, Mike Kelly, Thomas Petterson, Daniel Knight, Philippe de Savol, William Fletcher, Terry Wellman, Andy Benfield, Joshua Kanata, Rory Collins, Jason Wallet, Marshall Williams, Samuel Doherty, Jess Coleman, and Claude Belval. As positions changing hands very rapidly already.
Yeah, leave it to the oval guy to mess everything up. Here I was getting ready to settle in, enjoy a nice pace lap, get you the starting lineup, and next thing I know, we're waving the green flag from a standing start. I should have known better. I have watched, and I do enjoy the V8 supercars. Just forgot the rules there, so silly me, but Rachel, appreciate you correcting me there as these guys come around to complete the first lap, and yeah, tough break, as you saw on the screen there. for Thomas Peterson, already binning it on lap 1. Not the way you want to get around with a long race ahead of you and make that mistake. And that's what we talked about. These guys got to be patient, got to run their own race and not make those kinds of mistakes. The self-inflicted ones can really pull you out of this event quickly. And when you know you have about, I don't know, 2.5 hours worth of racing to do, making that kind of mistake on the first lap really sets up for a long evening.
Mike Kelly, our points leader heading into today's race, has already kicked off pit road. He is now sitting in 20th position. Early pit stop for our points leader.
I wonder maybe some strategy there, or had some contact that need to get some damage fixed. We'll have to follow up on that. Interesting stuff, or maybe he knows he's basically got this thing in the bag and doesn't need to run too hard or worry too much tonight, Rachel. I'm not too sure on that one. We'll keep an eye on where Mike Kelly sorts in as things move along here, but these guys winding their way around. We saw on the practice sheet the times, a pretty big discrepancy top to bottom. This is a very challenging racetrack, 23 turns, and a good spread through the field on overall speed, so expect things to get spread out. See some pockets of racing here and there, but really it's these guys racing within themselves and against this racetrack on the mountain. That's really the real race, not so much against the other competitors. Yeah,
absolutely. Now as they're coming down the mountain here under the Fuso Bridge down towards the S's are at the bottom, but what a phenomenal racetrack this really is. It's public roads during most of the year, actually, apart from the Bathurst 500, of course, and the Bathurst 12 hour. But this racetrack is the real enemy. This is what they're actually racing here, and this is what they'll be competing against. Each other is just a bonus. This place takes out race cars and eats them for breakfast. But there will be a race at some point. If we can find guys who are quick enough to be near each other, we'll have some phenomenal racing, and it can be truly amazing at Bathurst. But in general, they're racing the track.
Yeah, I've made some laps around here on iRacing. I've made some laps around this racetrack and other simulators as well. And most of those laps have been very poor attempts to complete a circuit. It's challenging. I mean, you have these long straightaways, you have very tight twisting turns as well, and concrete barriers on either side of it. So really no excuse me, margin for error. Everywhere you look, there's something that can reach out and grab you and damage your race car. So driving within your limits is definitely the key. And when you get around a guy, if you think you're faster than him, you got to find the right passing opportunities, Taylor, so you don't force something that shouldn't happen.
There's not a lot of passing opportunities here. When you're going through the first couple turns, the only major passing zone that you'll get is the long straightaway that'll have a downhill out of the finish line. And then after that, once we go through these many different tight turns and the downward spiral S's, you know, there's not a lot of room for passing. So passing drivers here is just as challenging as getting around this track.
Yeah, that long straightaway on the back there, Conrad Straight as it's called, that leads down to the chase. That's leading into turns 20, 21, and 22 as you get set up for the last corner there for the start-finish straight is really, as you said, one of the best overtaking opportunities. Getting a good run into Griffin's Bend, turn number 2 as well, if you can set that up correctly, and these guys know where they are, and they'll probably let up and not force something. Really not a lot of corners you want to try and do too wide here, Rachel, especially when you get into the more technical section, the S's there, the Dipper, all these fun names that these corners have. So these guys really want to run single file until they get that opportunity. And, you know, while we have a moment and we have a lot of laps here ahead of us, just sort of take us around this racetrack turn by turn from a race car driver's perspective, Rachel, if you would, and educate us a little bit of what it's like to make a lap around Mount Panorama.
Absolutely. We'll have a look at Eric Smith here, your race leader, although Tolhurst is catching up to him now. Hell Corner, the first corner, aptly named, of course, because it's where a lot of the crashes happen at the start of a race here at Bathurst. Big left-hand bend there, 90 degrees up onto the mountain straight here. Big flat-out straightaway with a dip just coming up here, which can really catch the drivers out just under the bridge there. Can really make the car quite light, difficult to handle into Griffin Bend here. Big long braking zone, sweeping right-hander now, climbing up the hill towards the cutting. So guys, we're getting back in the throttle up here, and you can almost take this next corner, the first part of the cutting, almost flat out, and it's hard on the brakes here for the second part of the Castrol cutting. Up now towards, well, just past Reed Park, which is up on the right-hand side of the track here. Kinking around now as they climb the mountain. Solomon Park is the big left here, this double left-hander that's coming up now, which you can keep a fairly constant radius through to keep some good speed there. That white wall on the outside gets you some cars though. And now Brock's Skyline here as they'll come towards the S's. over the skyline under the Coates High Bridge, and it's down into the S's. And then you've got the big one, the Dipper here, which winds you down into the mountains descent here now through those S's towards Forest Elbow here, the Falcon corner here. That's called Forest Elbow. Big braking zone after speed coming down through the S's. Now you're on to Conrad Straight, running as fast as possible. Huge drafting opportunity here. You talked about the chase, which is just up ahead. This is a great passing chance here, getting up behind someone, getting alongside them. If you can get inside here at this fast corner, this is a flat corner, you can basically get up on the curb there, just cut the car across, big on the brakes as soon as you clear that apex, hard on the brakes now down into the chase itself through the chicane here. Tolhurst keeping hot on the trail there of Smith as they come down to that final corner, Murray's corner now, another right angle, a 90-degree corner like the first corner, straight through there, and that's a lap around Bathurst.
You know, it's a little over 2 minutes to make a lap around here. These guys, Eric Smith just clicked off 2 minutes 6 seconds there. So great job, Rachel, bringing us a walkthrough of the track, if you will. And yeah, 23 turns to remember. And you know, for even guys that are experienced at running around this racetrack, they still make mistakes. I mean, there's just, I was thinking about how to best describe Mount Panorama. It's a racetrack that there's very little reward for doing it right, but a lot of penalty for doing it wrong. And there's so many opportunities to do it wrong that you can't really worry about anything else other than hitting your marks.
It's an MMA fight at a phone booth.
Oh, there you go. There's the analogy we were all looking for. I love it. I'll have, you know, you can trademark that. That's your thing. I won't steal that
you can
from
use
you.
it. Go for that.
I really like that. that. You know, some guys say a bull in a China shop or whatever. I think they used to say about Bristol flying a fighter jet in a gymnasium. That's always a fun one. But Taylor, I don't know. What do you like analogy-wise? What do you think fits?
I honestly have no clue. I'm terrible when it comes to analogies, so.
Well, you know, it's something to think about. We got a lot of race time here ahead of us. Maybe by the time of this thing, you'll have, by the time we get done with it, you'll have something in mind. But Eric Smith continues to lead the field around here. Matthew Thunhorst doing a great job keeping pace. And, you know, some corners he gets a little bit closer, others he falls back a little bit. But about 0.8 of a second last time by as they run down Conrad Straight right now down to the chase. Eric Smith seemingly has got really good pace right now, Rachel, and doing everything right, hitting all his marks. I've been watching him closely, hasn't put a wheel wrong yet. Not a lot of pressure from behind either, and just out there sort of running his race, which is exactly what he needs to do.
It certainly is, and as you come into the Armor Bridge now, it's a psychological race at Bathurst, especially if you're chasing the leader, or you are the leader. Thunhorst right now is just running in the wheel tracks of Smith, just following him, letting him know he's there, and that gives Thunhorst a great marker. He can see where the leader is, he can follow him, he can measure his performance, and Smith can measure himself against Thunhorst as well. But there is a psychological game between those two. I can't put a foot wrong because he will pass me if I lose momentum here. Thunhorst will lose Smith if he puts a foot wrong. So these two have to match each other perfectly in a kind of synchronized shark fight. It's all about trying to beat the track, but at the same time, stay with the other person to see who makes the mistake first.
A synchronized shark fight. I like that one too. That's two good ones right there. I always found it much easier to try and follow somebody around here because it gives you a better idea of where those breaking points are. Some guys sort of thrive on being out front and they don't need a reference car. I'm not that talented, so I need a reference car, but the danger in that is if the guy that you're following or referencing off of makes a mistake, you're probably going to make the same mistake too. So you really got to be careful, be on top of your game here, and it really is a game of inches. As you look at, they're using all the available space. There's no tiptoeing around this racetrack, even though they're out front by a comfortable margin over third place Riley Thompson, still attacking the racetrack, Taylor, much like they would if they're out there putting down a qualifying lap.
It's really difficult to keep the gap between them two when you're trying to conquer the tracks. Bathurst is such an incredibly difficult track to conquer. It's kind of like Dover in the NASCAR circuit. It is incredibly tough to master, and as well as I'll compare it to Darlington for how tight it is. Darlington is, it's only really good for 2 wide racing on the straightaways, where in the quarters you'll have to stick to 1 wide. That's kind of what it is here today at Bathurst. It's difficult to pass here, and you know, it's the same analogy the same saying that happens a lot in racing. If you can catch the guy, it's one thing. Passing him is another.
Very true. And just taking a look through the field, all 21 starters are still out and running. No real good battles. As I tried to find maybe somebody that was nose to tail or close to being side by side. Just not a lot going on. Barely, spread out like we thought we would see. And that's just the way it goes around here. Again, these guys, when you race the racetrack more than each other, you're not going to really see those battles. Maybe one little overtake here and there, but as it runs right now, it's still Eric Smith out front and holding that 0.8 of a second, lead over Matthew Thunhorst. So no change up front, and just taking a look, some good-looking race cars. You saw on the screen there the Playboy livery there. That's always fun to see, and depending on which angle you're looking at it for Terry Wellman, as he took an interesting angle through the chase there, but no worse for the wear. Nice looking race car, but gives up the spot, and he'll fall back into the 13th position there.
Yeah, absolutely does. And fighting, looking right now at the 35 car, that's Rory Collins. Right now being chased by the 658 of Jason Wallet. Passed him on the last lap. And it seems as though Wallet's just not quite carrying the speed he was before. So Collins is moving his way forwards. Last lap for him was a 2:17. So playing it safe, but quite a bit off what the leaders are doing there in the 2:06 sort of range. The likes of Smith and Tonhurst, who are both doing 2:05s now. So big momentum coming forwards.
Typically, when you're setting up a pass, again, you got to time it just right, because you don't want to make that pass in a place where you're going to lose a lot of time. So it's really that co-opetition. That's a word that we've heard used previously from professionals of guys racing each other, but working together to make their lives easier as positions change hands. So timing those passes so you don't lose your overall pace is a pretty big deal. And again, with very few passing opportunities, you really got to hope that the guy that you're trying to overtake is paying attention and doesn't do something that you're not going to like. If you look towards the 6th position between Henry Bennett and the number 18, Brandon Whitworth in the 377. Good little battle there for 6 as they're following themselves around. Bennett in that all green Holden, looking real good. Not a lot of sponsors on the car, but pretty slick nonetheless. Almost a sort of a Jaguar Racing green, even though it's on the Holden.
We tend to call that British Racing green where I'm from, but we'll go with Jaguar Racing. Being chased by Brandon Whitworth behind him though, the 377. Going a big slide at the start of the race. About where he was before. He started 6th, he's now running 7th, but seems to be catching up to Bennett at the moment, who's not running quite as quickly. Heading up now is the footbound course machine coming up towards Castro Cutting as they just power up this mountainside. I'm not sure which is harder actually, climbing or descending. I think honestly climbing is the easiest part of Bathurst. The descent, you're carrying so much momentum and there's so many big braking zones there with the extra added force. This really brings some extra challenge to the race. It's almost about staying single file from the end of Mountain Straight to the start of Conrod. Then you can really start racing the rest of the lap. It's just so challenging this up far.
And it's really a good test of patience for a race car driver. If you feel that you're faster than the guy in front of you, but you have to wait all that time, as you said, really have to bide your time until you get back around to Conrod Straight to try and make that pass. Just follow this slower driver in front of you. Really test the patience, but the guys that can have that racecraft discipline to know that they're faster and wait until the right opportunity, those are the guys that are generally going to have more success. So, those are the things to watch. And to your earlier point, Rachel, I'll agree. I think the descent is far more challenging than the climb. I always found myself having more issues in sort of the S's, the dipper section is generally where I get it wrong. Sort of going uphill is a little bit easier. It's easier to get the power to the ground. You're relying on the rear wheel drive as opposed to the front drive brakes on the descent, and that gets a little bit tricky carrying that momentum through. So that would be my vote. Taylor, what do you think? Easy going up or easier going down?
It's pretty much what you two have said. It's easier going up because when you're going up, you can put more power down, and your car is going a little bit slower, so you can probably get more turn in and turn out on exit, but going down, that's where it's gonna hurt the most, especially on Falcon's Elbow, I think it was called, one of the tightest corners going downhill. There's literally no room for error. You can't overdrive the corner, because if you do, you're heading straight into that wall, and not only will that cause damage to your car, it can also cause significant time loss, which, you know, even if you're ahead by a couple seconds, will hurt you nonetheless. So going uphill is obviously easier for the driver, because they can put more power down, they can not overdrive the corner as easier because they have more control, whereas going down, they're getting extra momentum due to gravity.
Yeah, fair point. You see it there on the screen. Brandon Whitworth overtaking Bennett, so put Whitworth up to 6th and Henry Bennett back to 7th, as you saw that place change hands there, going up the mountain straight, setting up for turn 2 for Griffin's Bend. That's the proper way to do it, Rachel. You get a good run off of Hell Corner, use the draft to your benefit, pull out alongside to the right side there, have a preferred line in to Griffin's Bend, and made a nice clean pass.
Absolutely did, and that's what you've got to do in this race, but it's just so challenging to just wait for that opportunity. And the patience is pretty big, but sometimes slowing down here and losing your rhythm can hurt you more at Bathurst. I want to look at the leaders here, because Turnhurst is really closing in on Smith now. Right up behind that car. Might actually be, if he can get some good corners here through McMurray and Hell, might actually be a drafting opportunity going up Mountain Straight. He's not quite good if he's a little bit far back, but he's in the I can see you zone now for Smith. Smith will be very much aware that car's behind him. Any slight errors will definitely bring him into the action, but slower there through Hell Corner than Smith. Smith with a great launch coming out, and should be fairly clean here all the way up to the mountain start. Just a tricky point as they get towards Griffin's Bend. This could be an opportunity. Stunhurst does seem faster across the mountain. Smith seems faster out of it.
It's really the run off the corner that matters the most when you get to these long straightaways. And I'm watching Eric Smith. He's working that steering wheel. That car is not hooked up well like it was on the first lap. Here we are on lap number 10 already. So working our way through here. And as he looks up in the rearview mirror, which I know he is, yeah, the second place car of Tunhorst, I should say, I'll get that pronunciation, is a little bit larger, looming bigger in that rearview mirror than he was previously. So Eric Smith knows that he doesn't have quite the lead that he had, and he continues to saw back and forth on that wheel here through the S's and the dipper. My goodness, just carrying that left front, but keeping it straight, making it look relatively easy. I know if I was in that chair trying to do what he's doing as he slides the rear end around, I would probably have been wrecked about 57 times by now, but a pro nonetheless. Eric Smith doing a great job getting the launch down Conron straight. But yeah, second place, a lot closer, sniffing that draft. It won't be long before we see a challenge for the lead.
Interesting because, you know, Matthew was trying to intimidate Eric, obviously, trying to make him make a mistake. But if he tries to do that, would that make Matthew make a mistake? Because an earlier point that was said a couple minutes ago about following the guy and having a guy follow, or, you know, what was said before about trying to follow somebody, and if they make a mistake, you could make a mistake. That could potentially be the case if Matthew tries to follow Eric's line, tries to do what he does, because whatever Eric's doing, Matthew's doing as well, and it's helping both of them out.
A lot closer now there as they come to completing the run up the mountain straight. And I'm telling you, Rachel, you can probably attest to this pretty well. When you're out front leading and you see the second place car getting bigger and bigger in that rearview mirror, that makes you think a lot more. It might make you push a little bit more. And when you start to push, especially on 11-lap old tires, around a racetrack like this where grip's at a premium, you're more liable to make a mistake. So really a lot of pressure now on Eric Smith there to hold this lead, but you know, try and not ruin his race to stay out front too hard. Maybe sometimes you got to let that guy get through and sort of recoup.
Yeah, absolutely, and look at how close they are together now. This is the psychological game in full effect, as both of them are trying to be as clean as they possibly can. Last time, Tunhorst was a 206.04. Smith was a 206.329, so much, much faster. And that gap is within draft range now. Tunhorst needs to get better exits from Forest Elbow and Hell Corner, and he's a real chance of passing Smith.
taking a look at number 98 there, Matthew Tunhorst, the second place car. Looks like he's missing some body work on the right front corner, if I'm not mistaken. Clearly not affecting the overall performance, if that's what I'm seeing correctly, but maybe he got a piece of the wall early on, sort of ripped off the right front fender there over the tire, sort of exposing that, but no worse for the wear as he rockets down at full speed, and these guys will get up to a very high rate of speed down Conrad Straight as they get along to the chase, almost 180 miles an hour before he has to get on the brakes. So aerodynamics do play a key at these long straightaways, but the damage not any worse for the wear right now.
Well, we're talking about first and second, but how about we talk about third place of Riley Thompson for just a quick moment, because points heading into Myrtle Beach are going to be quite shape-shifted after tonight nonetheless, but the points lead, the championship, is going to be determined at Myrtle Beach by just barely over 20 points if we finish. If the running order right now was the finishing order, because we saw Mike Kelly earlier in the race go down pit road, and that obviously is going to drop him a ton of points. He's currently sitting in the 14th spot, whereas Riley Thompson, who is 76 points back in second place in the standings, it's third place, currently a little over 5 seconds behind this front two.
Yeah, good point there, and Riley Thompson's got to be feeling pretty good about things as we look back to the 8th place battle there. That's Felipe Savoy, Daniel Knight duking it out for 8th and 9th as well. And here comes the pass for the lead on the outside, Knight to the outside. Savoy sort of giving way and letting him go. Nice bit of little race etiquette there. So move Daniel Knight up to 8th, Felipe Savoy back to 9th. And a nice little exchange for position there. But back to your point about Riley Thompson, the last time I saw the Major Series was back at Pocono back in August, and I saw Riley Thompson go to victory lane there, and he's had a pretty good run of things since then. But yeah, got to be licking his chops right now at the opportunity presented to him early on to make up some big points and possibly set up a pretty exciting finish to the championship when this series heads to Myrtle Beach.
No, it certainly does, and Myrtle Beach will be an interesting one. Of course, the late model is going to be running at Myrtle Beach, and that will be a phenomenal race. 300 laps around the short track with some really cool short track cars, so that will be an amazing one. Do not miss that. As it looks like Savoy making his gains here. The gap between Smith and Tunhorst, though, the lead, is getting much, much closer. Again, though, Tunhorst just not as fast in those slow right angle corners. He can't quite keep up. 0.6 of a second gap. And again, slightly better, but again, just doesn't quite have the same jump. Smith's car dialed in.
Eric Smith's car is definitely better on the straightaways than Matthew's is. Matthew can get him right to his back bumper on these tight corners, but just as soon as they get to the straightaways, those high-speed straights, that's where Matthew loses a lot of time.
Maybe the damage is playing a role in that when he's losing his speed down the straightaways. Not as much as I might expect it to, but I think Eric Smith is just more comfortable getting the power down, even with the car jumping sideways sometimes as he manhandles that wonderfully prepared spec racer, the V8 supercar, forward around these corners here at Mount Panorama. Just doing a great job, and just watching the steering inputs and the way he's massaging the steering wheel. A lot of counter steer I see right now, Rachel, when he's putting that power down, because the rear tires are trying to break traction, put all that power to the pavement. He's got a lot of steering angle into it as well, which these cars typically don't respond very well to as rear wheel drive, and he's hanging it out sideways but holding on to it. A lot of skill on display here from Eric Smith.
Oh, absolutely. Smith is definitely pushing as fast as he can, working incredibly hard and doing just about what he needs to do to keep ahead of Tunhorst. Pit cycle, of course, coming up in some time fairly soon for them. That'll be an interesting one to see how well they get on pit road here. That's a tricky entrance, but we'll have to consider that in the race.
Yeah, I've thrown away my fair share of races that I actually got to make a pit stop on, trying to get to pit road. That is a very challenging pit road entry because you're so used to just blasting past it and getting set up for that braking zone. when you get down there to Murray's Corner, and it gets so slow and tight, a lot tighter than you might expect for sort of a mini S's pit road entry. So you go wrong there, you're out in the grass, maybe even haven't completely call off the pit stop. That could be something that could ruin a guy's day pretty quickly, but we'll keep an eye on that as we get around to that. Rachel, do you have an idea of when these guys might have to pit?
We're about another 10 laps or so based on what we're seeing right now.
All right, it's another 10 laps or so, so we'll see as those things start. And again, we've seen races won and lost plenty of times here on LSRTV. These guys should be no exception to that rule. Again, no change up front, still Eric Smith, who riding the momentum, I guess, of a win back in September at Suzuka. So a lot of momentum there for the driver of the 32 in that PPG painted up scheme. Looking real good out front. He's been leading since the drop of the green flag. Started first, running first. No real challenge from anyone except for the 98 Matthew Tunhorst. But that gap sort of scaling out once again, falling back to nearly a full second now as Smith continues to put on just an absolute torrent pace.
He is coming up on a couple of slower cars ahead of him.
Something to work through as lap traffic can definitely affect a race. Ooh, slides it out big there. That gets me real worried as I watch him do that. It's like, I don't know, I'm sure he's not doing it intentionally, and it's just him trying really hard,
right.
But gosh, that is hard to catch.
No matter how many times I see that, that always brings chills down your spine that something bad is going to happen whenever they counter steer and, so unexpected. And I've been riding around with Eric Smith for about a lap and a half, and oh, that was a close one. Oh, with the lap car there. But there's a lot of brake smoke coming out because they're getting hard on the brakes for these corners, and a lot of oversteer and counter steering as well. So, and I think a big factor of that may have to be with the weather, because it is pretty chilly and cloudy here. So it may make the cars a little slicker on these longer runs. But we'll have to see. We'll see what that brings to the table.
Well, that's a good point. I didn't take a look at the weather. I did see it was a bit overcast, but calling for about 65 degrees Fahrenheit ambient. Track temperature not much different as well. Winds out of the southwest about 9 miles an hour or so. And again, the overcast skies. So a little bit cooler, a little bit more challenging to get these tires with proper heat in them. They're not getting quite the grip that they might otherwise get. So trying to put all this horsepower down to the pavement as the tires wear now on lap 15, got to manage that throttle pedal. It's not just an on-off switch, is it, Rachel?
No, absolutely not. And these cars, they're dancing on that throttle because managing the wheel spin, the power. These cars are incredibly powerful. I was talking to Taylor before the race and saying how these are basically like NASCARs. They're a two-print race car with a body over it. They have a huge engine, but unlike NASCARs, they have fairly big brakes and downforce, but they're lighter. A lot of power plus light equals very skittish.
The difference between these cars and the Xfinity cars that I ran here on Friday night is that these cars can actually brake when you hit them, hit the brakes at a heavy force, unlike the Xfinity cars where you hit them and you're going to go a spinning. So, yeah. I've done a lot of road racing and oval racing, but I do have to say Bathurst is definitely one of the most challenging road courses to run on. A lot of people will say it's Le Mans, but I say it is Bathurst.
Ooh, mistake out front.
Yep.
Sorry, Taylor. Mistake out front by Eric Smith, getting down into the chase, overshoots the entry, and put Matthew Tunhorst out front in the lead. So there's that unforced error biting Eric Smith as he will lose the lead now.
That was.
Yeah, that's what we talked about, and it happens.
I think if I looked at it again, I think Eric Smith may have locked up the brakes and maybe overshoot the corner just by a little bit, and that unfortunately will cost him the lead and about 2 seconds of time that he has to now gain on Matthew. So the battle for the lead that we talked about pretty much the entirety of the race, it falls into Matthew's favor. And just like that, everybody's separated.
Yeah, that's one of those things we did highlight it, and you saw it right there. Hugo Luis doing a great job bringing you the sights and sounds of all the action here at Mount Panorama. So thank you very much, Hugo, for showing us that. Eric Smith, the unforced error, losing the lead as a result. And we'll fall back to battle here for 6th. Henry Bennett has it. Michael Lane wants it. Michael Lane in the number 62 Can-Am machine holding down the 7th position, but got hungry eyes looking for 6th. Is he getting a good run up the straightaway here? Going to fall back and hold on to that challenge there. Henry Bennett, we've talked about him a few times here already. Since the green flag has moved up a couple positions from his 8th starting position. Had some good battles already, and seems to be maybe the center of action as we've seen around the racetrack.
Yeah, certainly, and that'll shift throughout the field throughout this race. There's so much action that can go on here. We'll see things separate out, of course, after the pit cycle, but in general, these guys will be racing the track until they come across somebody else. At that point, you have a brief scuffle, and things go back to being peaceful and quiet again. But as it stands, it's one of those phases of the race where things have just calmed down, and then things will go crazy a second time.
And to go back to your point about the difference and similarity between the V8 supercars and NASCAR stock car, just this week, supercar star driver Scott McLaughlin got his own personal test drive of a Roger Penske prepared Joey Logano Ford Fusion from 2016, I believe, and drove it around Gold Coast. And had an absolute blast with it. He said it was one of the best drives he'd ever had. And it was really cool to have somebody that drives these V8 supercars for a living and does it at a very high level jump into a NASCAR Monster Energy Cup Series car, drive it there in Australia, and give us feedback on it. He really had a blast with it. It was kind of weird to see a stock car like that going around Gold Coast, but really fun to see that, and perhaps some more things to come down the line as NASCAR maybe looks at the V8 supercars as a inspiration for some changes to make for future racing.
Kind of like what happened with Fernando Alonso and Jimmy Johnson a couple months ago, with rumors roaming around the internet that those two were going to be swapping rides.
Well, that'd be interesting, wouldn't it? Alonso's definitely enjoying them all.
Yeah, I would, as we see the pass here now, Henry Bennett going to be overtaken by Michael Lane. Nice run down the straightaway there. Let's put Michael Lane up to 6th and Henry Bennett back to 7th. But yeah, these driver swaps, we've seen them before. We've seen Tony Stewart and Lewis Hamilton do it. We saw Jeff Gordon do an F1 swap with Montoya, I believe, a number of years ago as well. So it's fun to see some of these disciplines meet and exchange and do little crossovers. But you know, we talk about Eric Smith, who's back in 2nd, have a very similarly prepared-looking vehicle to that of Scott McLaughlin, which made me think of that Penske livery there. So it was cool to see that happen, get some notoriety and some NASCAR exposure in Australia. And I think the V8 supercars do put on a great show. I would love to see some more of what they bring to the racetrack in modern-day NASCAR.
Oh, there's a lot of similarities in the racing. It's all very much bravado-filled and rubbing this racing sort of attitude on the track. And whilst it's not actively encouraged in the V8 series, you'll tend to see people using their elbows. And you get that very kind of boisterous elbows out racing. It's very touring cars. Well, that's the thing though. The V8 cars is touring cars. And in Australia and in the UK, for example, in Europe, touring cars are the grassroots motorsport. It's the elbows out, it's the pushing and shoving, pack racing discipline. America has oval racing for that. Not sure what that says about attention spans, you know, 2 corners, but hey, you know, it works. And touring cars is basically the same sort of style of racing, essentially, and this is just a bigger, fatter, angrier version of that.
Bigger, fatter, angrier. Yeah, I would agree with all of that, and certainly requires a good sense of car control, and you know, road racing, oval racing, always 2 camps that are at odds, it seems, as to who has the better product, and whether it's here in America or overseas in Europe or elsewhere, Australia for this series particularly, or F1, which goes international. We had a great F1 race here today in Circuit of the Americas. I won't give any spoilers, but that was a fantastic race in itself. It's fun to see people come out and just do what they love to do. And in particular, this sort of series, as you said, Rachel, sort of elbows out, beating and banging. Just a lot more excitement, it seems, with less manufactured gimmicks sometimes. But it's fun to see and enjoyable as we see them here today now. 17 laps in, I believe, of 81, so moving right along, no change. Still up front, and that lead has absolutely swelled to over 3 seconds for Matthew Tunhorst in the number 98 machine. Once he got around Eric Smith, man, he did not hesitate to pull away. And Taylor, if you're Eric Smith, you got to be kicking yourself, but still you got to do some damage control. You're only second. You got a nice big gap back to third, so no need to fret too much as you still have a great run going.
Well, the difference between road racing and oval racing from a driver's perspective is when you're oval racing, if you make a mistake, you're going to drop several positions back, and it's going to be really difficult to get those positions back and be back to where you were before. But on road racing, when you make a mistake and you have a ton of time left, like Eric does, Eric still has a lot of time to catch back up to Matthew. But Eric, even though he made that mistake and it did cost him the lead, it could have been a whole lot worse. He could have been off course by a couple miles, had to slow down, give up, have a time penalty. It could have been a lot worse. So even though Eric, must be kicking himself because he did lose the lead, still has a ton of time to gain that lead back.
We look at another good battle here on the screen. That's going to be for 9th place. It's going to be Philip Savoy in the 06 and Jess Coleman in the number 10. I'm sorry, in the number 678 in 10th spot, fighting over that 9th position. So good little battle here as they work through Hell Corner. A lot of smoke rolling off of those tires as they lock up the brakes. These guys are giving it their all. I'd love to see that even though it's only lap 19, they are driving still just as hard as they were on lap 1, trying to fight over these positions. And even though they're, looking at the timing and scoring here, 53 seconds back of the leader, still having a great race within each other, and that's always fun to see. And if you're a driver in a race like this where you get so spread out, Rachel, it's nice to at least have a buddy out there. As we see Coleman get way wide out there, at least have a buddy to go out there and race with, swap positions, so you're not just out there logging laps by yourself.
Absolutely, and that's great to pace yourself with somebody working with them or not. Even if you don't tend to pass the guy in front, it's great to have a measure. Keep equal distance, and you're not going to outbrake yourself or them. And it also helps with the draft. So as a pair, you end up pulling yourself around the track. And believe it or not, there's plenty of drafting in road racing.
Yeah, definitely. These V8 supercars do benefit from the draft quite nicely. They got the big spoilers on the back and big flared wheel wells out front, but they are designed to go quick in a straight line, and they definitely get that done. A lot of horsepower, lightweight body and chassis, and that's why they're able to get upwards of 180 miles an hour down here at the end of Conrad Strait. So good battle here for 9th as Coleman continues to try and figure out a way past to get into that 9th position, take it away from Savoy, but so far no luck. That Band of Brothers Gaming.com, number 678. Jess Coleman doing a nice job.
Actually, not brothers.
Oh,
I found that kind of cute when I actually saw the car because I zoomed in on the livery. I was like, Band of Brothers. I don't know, it's Band of Others.
It is.
That's very dark and very foreboding.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that could entail, but it sounds fun as we see Savoy get a big time wiggle off the exit there. As this is a good fight going down into the final corner. Who's going to take it? Oh, he sends it in there. Got to give some room. Big slide of the front. Oh, no, he's around.
There he goes.
That's a common one. That is definitely a common one. Got up the inside in Murray Corner. We'll often see the person who tries it just overbiting a little bit and looping out. He got very lucky there. He didn't actually contact the tyre wall and keep himself going here. There's a lot of race left. You can make up the time there, but yeah, that's an embarrassing one, and not the first driver to do it.
That makes you sick to your stomach when you do that. You think you got a position, and it was good, fair, clean side-by-side racing, a lot of room left. He just caught a little bit of that curb, got a little exuberant getting back to the gas pedal, and around she went.
That seems to be a very common mistake here at Bathurst. You think you can get on the throttle just a little bit quicker than he can, and then you get those tire spins, and around goes the car. Luckily, Jess Coleman never hit anything, which is very good.
Yeah, anytime you can come out of a wreck, if you will, and not hit anything. It really didn't even damage the tires that much, I don't think, because he got down into the grass. So aside from losing a lot of time and track position, probably no worse for the wear. and he'll get back underway. But Felipe Savoy, I should say, probably breathing a little bit of a sigh of relief that he didn't get taken out in that spin.
Yeah, absolutely, and just stay as wide as you can, and not typically doing exactly what he needs.
Taking a look around the rest of the racetrack here, see some cars on pit road now, including Riley Thompson, Andy Banfield, Rory Collins, Marshall Williams as well, all on pit road. So some of these guys taking these pit stops we talked about. Pit window maybe around lap 20 to 26 or so. So these guys may be hitting pit road a little bit early. Riley Thompson was your third place runner, comes down to the attention of his pit crew. So this should shake things up a little bit. I would imagine they come in, get the routine service, sort of reassess things as they run through this first stint of 20 laps or so, and get back out there and try and improve. But Riley Thompson, the first of your front runners to come down and take service, and we'll see where he cycles things once he gets back underway.
Going back to what you said a couple minutes ago about how these V8s get a ton of help from the draft and how they can get so many passing opportunities on the straight because of the draft. It kind of makes me wonder what these cars would be like at the Daytona Super Speedway, just going at it, pack racing, and all that.
Surprisingly good. iRacing lets us try that. It's fun, very fun.
It's an interesting combination. I hadn't thought to try that, but it makes sense. I mean, I've seen people put F1 cars and other types of race cars out at the restrictor plate tracks that I wouldn't think to put out there, and had some mixed results. Some of it good, some of it not so good. But I'm glad to hear that the V8 supercars put on a good show. I would imagine so. They're similar enough to a NASCAR stock car that it shouldn't be that much different, but maybe increased aerodynamics with the big spoiler punching a bigger hole. Maybe some of those draft packages that we saw earlier in like 2001, 2002 with the roof rail and all that made for some really interesting pack racing. Good to see that people are trying that. That's what I love about iRacing. You can literally take any race car they offer, put on any race track that they offer, and just have a good old fun time with it.
You know that I think it was one of the road racing series were coming to this track just this week. I can't remember if it was the Skip Barber series or the Formula Roosevelt series. Either way, open wheel cars at this track, it's very difficult. You know, V8s at this track are difficult, but try open wheel cars. You can't hit anything at all.
I imagine you take a tough challenge as it is and make it even tougher with an open wheel car. I'm good. I'll pass on that. I don't need to. I'll let other people try that out. I don't need that frustration. But probably fun, but not what I would consider to be fun personally. But now as we watch these guys that have pitted, like Riley Thompson, come out on fresh tires, the pace that they pick up is absolutely incredible. How much faster they can run around here after putting on new tires versus what they're running on the old tires. So all eyes will go to these guys that pitted and see how much time they might be able to make up on the leaders that have yet to hit pit road. Matthew Tunhorst still out front by 5 seconds now over Eric Smith. Travis Henderson third, Brandon Whitworth fourth, Henry Bennett up to fifth. And I would expect that we see these leaders here, Rachel, in the next couple of laps hit pit road.
Absolutely, and that'll be something we'll have to deal with once they decide to come down. But that's their prerogative in terms of when they want to play with each other in terms of strategy. You don't want to make it too soon, but you want to make sure you get the tyres going on there. P5 is getting interesting right now. And once again, it's Bennett here is one of the cars racing that plain green machine, the 18, running just ahead of, I think what it was, but I believe that might be a lap car actually he's racing past there. That was the Ford we saw racing earlier. I've forgotten exactly who he is. I can't see his number on the car. I could have sworn he was a lap machine. I might well be wrong. Oh, Savar. Okay, so that's two cars back. So moving fast right now. Bennett is absolutely flying.
I saw Bennett just in turn number one. He was off track. I don't know if he was completely sideways, but I knew that he was in the sand trap for just a slight moment. So.
Another one of those errors probably that we've seen these guys be prone to making. That's really, again, the race within the race. Got to be good to yourself and good to your own equipment, as I think think Eric Smith, yes, Eric Smith is on pit road. I was looking for him out on the track, didn't see him. So Eric Smith pits from the second position now, bringing that number 32 vehicle to the attention of his pit crew. Pitting out of second place. He's got the first pit stall since he was the pole sitter. So Eric Smith hitting pit road, probably sitting there now thinking to himself about the mistake that he made that cost him the lead and how much pace he lost after that. Rachel, do you think it was just shattered confidence or worn tires that made him fall so far back?
I think it's probably a combination of the tires, to be honest. There's both of those cars now on pit road, Savoy and Bennett, coming in for their tires and fuel at this point. So about 23 laps, that's kind of the ballpark we were expecting to see earlier on in the race, as everyone will cycle through and get that done, as Tolhurst and Smith are both running pretty hard right now. Smith, his fastest lap was a 2:05.938, and that was on lap 4, I believe. That was practice actually I'm looking at, so whoops. Lap 5 in the race, 2:05.405 was Thunhorst himself, 5.3, so slightly faster right now, and he's on to pit road, so we'll see if Smith will react. Big gap between them, actually. I believe if I look at the laps, Smith actually has not pitted yet, so wow, that gap opened up massively. I'm not entirely sure how that happened, as
well, Smith did pit. He just came off. This is his outlap.
Ah, this is outlap. That makes absolute sense then. Yep, Tolhurst responding, of course, afterwards, and he may get off pit road ahead of him. We'll have to see.
Yeah, this is the I'd expect, unless there's a huge error on Tolhurst's part, that he would come out still with a pretty sizable lead. I believe that gap was somewhere between 5 to 6 seconds back to Eric Smith before Smith hit pit road. So Smith now pushing hard. Got to have a really good outlap here if you're going to try and eat into that lead that opened up. So Tolhurst sitting there in his pit stall, you know, hoping these guys get it done quickly. These are about 47, 48 second pit stops. They're not fast when you think about maybe a NASCAR pit stop at 15 to 16 seconds. Certainly much slower here, but everyone about the same 47, 48 seconds or so. So now we'll watch as Tolhurst continues to sit in his pit stall as Eric Smith works through onto the start-finish line. There goes Tolhurst now. Here comes Smith. This could be a pretty good little run down, but I think Tolhurst is going to have him fairly comfortably here as he works down the front straightaway.
Definitely know that gap will be decreased a little bit, but I don't know if it'll be enough for Smith to get back up to Matthew and challenge him for the lead.
No, not enough there. Is good work by the pit crew. The number 98 gets him out in front, and Eric Smith is probably going to be somewhere around that 5 to 6 seconds back when this thing all cycles through. So maybe no net change in effect there. So now, Rachel, first stint in the books. You're Eric Smith. You had the lead. You gave it up because of an unforced error. Now you find yourself, 5 or 6 seconds back from the guy that was chasing you around the racetrack. How do you set yourself up, or what do you need to do in the second stint to try and regain what you lost?
Yeah, well, getting yourself set up again is clearing your mind. It's all about just letting everything go that's happened and just racing. Just race. Just make sure you've got your mind clear. You're not worrying about things. And we see Smith and Thunhorst here getting closer, as you've just got to focus back again. You've just got pit road. You've had a little bit of a mental break. Trust me, running down pit road at Bathurst is a huge break after running around Bathurst, as these guys just need to get themselves relaxed. We're basically a quarter of the race down. It's been a great quarter so far, but there's a lot of race left to go, and these guys have to make it there. Looking at what we've got so far, by the way, appears to be everyone's still running on the racetrack. Every single car, after 23 laps at Bathurst, is still running. That might be a record.
That's gotta be something, because this road racing in general would cause just a couple of drivers to be out of the race in just the first lap maybe. But I'm very surprised. Pretty much, I'm not the only one that is very surprised to see every driver running still. And even though last place Marshall Williams 2 laps down, even though he's 2 laps down in the last place spot, him still running, especially at Bathurst, that's a win.
probably doing better than I would have had I taken the starting grid. And follow up on what we're talking about, this exchange of pit stops. Eric Smith is only 2.2 seconds back of Matthew Tunhorst now after everything cycles through. So some ground made up for Eric Smith, made up 3 or 4 seconds almost on Tunhorst there. So I don't know if it was just a better entry and out lap for Smith, or there was a slight mistake made by Tunhorst one of those times as well. But yeah, that lead has shrunk up quite a bit as now he's going to have some work to do out front. We saw a little bit further back, there was a swap for position, I believe around 18th or so. Claude Belval and Daniel Knight, and even throw in Terry Wellman as well, the Playboy car, having themselves a nice little battle there around the racetrack. So fighting all the way through this racetrack, whether they're lead lap, which there's 13 cars on the lead lap of our 21 starters, or even a lap down at this point. Good battles throughout, but these guys not shy around the mountain, whether they're on the lead lap, same lap, or a different lap. They're fighting it out just the same.
Yeah, they certainly are, and the fight will never really be over on this racetrack. As take a look at Travis Henderson, he's definitely pushing forward pretty well here. Qualified 4th, he's hanging on there. He's actually going after, I thought that was Riley Thompson, actually. That's a lap down machine that's just ahead of him there. He'll be getting his way through there in no time at all. But it's definitely going to be one of those challenging situations for them. That was Andy Banfield he was going past. But there's a huge amount of work they have to put into this, and yeah, the cars and these different tracks, it's such a huge effort for these guys to make it around these things. The disciplines in the major series, to me, is the biggest factor of why I love this series. Different cars, different tracks. The multi-talented drivers here are phenomenal.
That's definitely one of the most unique aspects of this series, is the fact that it's not the same thing race after race. They switch it up, different cars, different tracks, like you said. And it takes a very well-rounded driver to find success, and maybe there's a combination that doesn't favor a driver a particular time out, and so he'll have a poor showing, but maybe the next combination will be more to his liking and he can go out and make up for it. But speaking of making up for it, Eric Smith cut the lead in half that last time by, now down to 1.3 seconds at the line. This thing's getting tighter up front, and that tells me that Eric Smith is definitely pushing at this point in the racetrack, and maybe Tunhorst is dialing back just a little bit because he doesn't have to push too hard. He's out front, but Eric Smith charging for all he's worth. He wants that lead back.
I think what's great about the Major Series is they're not like many other leagues where they just set up one session and it's like a half an hour practice, 60 minutes of practice, and unless you prematurely got practice somehow, some way, that was pretty much that. But what the Majors does is they require you to run a certain amount of laps around the track to be eligible to even race in this race. So that's what I love about the Major Series, is they want you to be at your 110% all the time. And even if you are not the best with these cars at this track, chances are if you run this series and run this track with these cars, chances are you're probably going to be one of the best at it, coming out of it.
There's definitely a fine line of separation between those that are good at it and those that struggle with it. This track will definitely magnify that level of comfort, as again the lead shrinks by a couple of tenths. A slight lockup on the left front from Eric Smith, but being told that our leader Matthew Tunhorst is on loan to this particular series, comes from the Pacific region. We're here looking at the Atlantic region right now tonight, but on loan from the Pacific region, so using his guest drive to come in here and leveraging it to great effect for his one chance to race here with these guys out front right now and looking good in the number 98. Also Travis Henderson from the European region, so multi-region racing throughout the majors. The Atlantic region, I should say, being highlighted here. Matthew Tunhorst in a guest spot, if you will, Rachel, and making the most of it.
Yeah, absolutely, showing exactly what can be done with these cars and definitely proving a point. But the points are something that really needs to be considered in this event, and it's vital, of course, that they make sure they don't make a mistake like that. Speaking of points, by the way, we actually had the Atlantic Pro standings before this race, and we can actually show you what those were. Of course, Mike Kelly leading the way, 232 points, or is it 2,321? I believe it is, yes. Riley Thompson running behind, 76 points back. So Brian Thompson doing fairly well, is running third. Brandon Whitworth, of course, is down in 5th place. He is on minus 162. Joshua Kanata, Thomas Pedersen, Lord Bell Valens 6th place, Anthony Banfield, Eddie Hawks, Jason Wallace, Eric Smith. This will help him. He's in 10th place. So if he can get a good result here today, that would be big for him in terms of the overall results going into Myrtle Beach. Carl Burke, Ross Banfield, Tom Stanley, Simon Thorns, and James Dowan. So that's really important for those guys.
A lot of prestige, a lot of bragging rights on the line to call yourself a champion of this kind of series, to say that you were able to master a series that features all kinds of disciplines from oval to road, from stock cars to late models to open wheel, everything you can imagine, basically the whole gamut of offerings here on the iRacing service. To be able to say that you came out of that as the champion, I'm telling you, that gets you some real street cred. If street cred in sim racing is a thing, that will definitely get you some big points there. But it just goes to prove that there are some very talented individuals out there in the sim racing community, and you're going to find a lot of them here in the major series, because that is the allure, that's the draw, is to come in and not just race the same thing over and over again. And you see a lot of very talented guys come through, and two very talented guys duking it out here at Mount Panorama, as Matthew Tunhorst continues to lead from Eric Smith. That lead shrinking once again as Smith is in hot pursuit through the S's, coming down to the Dipper, and it may not be long here before he gets himself set up to try and make an overtake and reclaim the lead.
Like what happened just before the first pit stop, except the roles are switched. Now Eric Smith going on the attack here on Matthew. Now, will Matthew make a mistake, kind of like what Eric did, that made Eric lose the lead? Will that happen with Matthew? It may happen. It's a kind of a slim chance. But how Bathurst is, you can't make too many mistakes. You can't make any mistakes really at all. But where Eric did his mistake, it was just on this very corner right here. Get to these long straights where the concrete walls and the barriers are separated by a lot more than in these corners, then you can make a mistake here and not have it damage your car in any way, shape, or form. Whereas if you did it in kind of like the Falcon elbow or something like that, it'll probably spell catastrophe for your race.
Watching both of these guys as they got down into the chase, they both sort of overshot it just a little bit. That tells me that the pressure is on, and Matthew Tunhorst is feeling that pressure from behind by Eric Smith, as they're both driving harder now than they were at the beginning part of the second stint. So, you know, for me as a sim racer, if I'm in Eric Smith's position, I'm sort of grinning a little bit at the opportunity to sort of maybe play some mental games like he experienced himself during the first run that led to his mistake. If he can get a measure of revenge as he pokes the nose to the inside here, that's not the place to make a move, my goodness. But this is a hot and heavy battle as they go past the lapped car now. The race is on for the lead. How patient will Eric Smith be? All the pressure from behind on Matthew Tunhorst.
Yeah, it really is. He has to really work right now as the battle is hotting up. This is the sort that we love to see at Bathurst, of course. Close racing over there as they go towards Skyline and down into the S's before the Dipper. Lap traffic ahead of them. He'll be going to look at his mirror going, God, where the hell do I get out of the way of this one? Really hasn't got an option until he gets down to Conrod Straight, of course. Just going to have to hold it and hope. As Tunhorst, looking for an opportunity to get past. He needs to get away from Smith. That's exactly what he wants to do right now. As there we go, lap traffic gets out of the way. But look at this, how close Smith is. The draft is on right up the rear bumper here as he comes down the straight towards the King. And then the run as he looks to the inside. He has the draft. He pulls along the inside. That gives him the advantage there. Big braking now. Too wide here is going to make it very interesting. Runs wide there. Van Horst defends himself, taking a narrow defensive internal line to the corner, but this will give a wider entry to Smith. Gets a great run there. carries speed, looks to the outside, running down to Murray Corner. Has he got a chance to do this thing? It's going to be a tough call to go on the outside, but a defensive line for Smith could hold him a little bit more restricted than he wants. Undercut possibly for Smith. Gets to the line, gets the inside. Better this time, more of an undercut. Donos go around the outside for Hell Corner. Both of them break. Big, tight line for Smith. Smith blocks him off. Nicely done. Eric Smith with a huge move.
Nicely done.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well done to Eric Smith. Showed a lot of patience, put a ton of pressure on Tunhorst, and made a beautiful move to the inside. Cut him here. Now you see him take that defensive line again as these two continue to battle it out. Absolutely fantastic racing, the best racing we've seen thus far through 30 laps. Put Eric Smith back out front where he started the race, and now we'll see if he can pull away. But some quality racecraft on display from both of those drivers as they ran their own lines, did it clean, but Eric Smith proving a lot more pace there. I don't know if Tunhorst just isn't up to speed on the second run, or Eric Smith's just in an absolute zone right now, but the gap already starting to increase here through the middle sector.
And certainly working on what he can do here to try and make something happen, but that was a phenomenal fight we just saw there, of course, and the guy's pushing as hard as possible to get this thing to really play out. But a lot of traffic coming up ahead of there. Thompson is trying to catch up with this group at the front. The battling has slowed them down and brought them closer to the other cars that were battling them in this race. 5 seconds separating the top three. But the real telling story here is it's back to fourth place, 23 seconds back. That is huge around this place. Although Thomas Peterson just up ahead of your leader, Panos. He'll be the next one to go down lap, and soon we'll only have 10 the lead lap out of 21 runners.
Leader's putting down a very good pace right now. Yeah, putting half the field a lap down. And I just want to go back to that battle that we saw for the lead. And just how hard it is to execute what those two drivers did and not touch fenders, not wreck it up. A lot of respect and discipline shown by both of them, but proper racing right there as Eric Smith just did everything he needed to put himself in the right position, kept getting the good runs off the corner, showing the nose, and eventually got the good breakdown into Hell's Corner, good launch off. And you saw Tunhorst try to swing it back down to make his own undercut, just mistimed it ever so slightly, and had to check up and lost his momentum off, which is what sealed the deal for Eric Smith. But well done by both of those drivers. High quality driving on display there as Eric Smith now back out front. Can he avoid the self-inflicted error that we saw in the first stint now that he's back out front? But Tunhorst not going away. Real aggressive getting into turn 2 there, Griffin's Bend. So this thing's far from over.
I know if I was Eric Smith, I would be dreading the thought of making another mistake. How he lost the lead for the first pit stop. He definitely does not want to do that again. And obviously now that he has the lead and he has Matthew on his rear view mirror, even though he's gaining the gap a little bit, Matthew has closed down the gap this big earlier, just a couple minutes ago. And Eric, he better have that thought of making a mistake out of his head. That's all I gotta say from a driver to another driver. Gotta get that mistake out of your head. Don't think of making a mistake, because if you think about making a mistake, you're going to make a mistake.
Yeah, the power of attraction, or the law of attraction, I should say there. I think you're right. And from what I see from Eric Smith, the way he's driving that car around the track right now, no hesitation and certainly not getting shy. I think it's well out of his mind. They say like a place kicker in the NFL, you got to have a short-term memory. Forget about the failures so you can focus on future success. Eric Smith showing all the things that aren't on his mind right now as he continues to hustle the race car around the track down into the chase now. Still a lot of pressure from behind, but you can't let that get to you. You got to run your own line, hit your braking points, and I think that's exactly what he's doing as we're probably closing in on 10 to 15 laps from the next round of pit stops, as well as big wiggle on entry there. He's wheeling it for all he's worth right now.
Both those two locked up the brakes. A lot of smoke from both of them. And now with that lap led, Eric Smith has now led more laps than Matthew has. Before Eric crossed the line, they were both sitting at 15 laps led, since these two were the only leaders. Now Eric has 16 laps led, while Matthew has 15. So these two are definitely the dominant two drivers that we're going to be watching a lot tonight.
Yeah, it's good stat tracking there, Taylor. Appreciate that. Keeping track of what really matters, how many laps these guys have led, and they sort of split custody, if you will, of the laps. And Rachel now with Eric Smith back out front, closing in on, I don't know, about 8 laps away from halfway or so. Putting down good lap time, seemingly very smooth, but he did pit a few laps earlier than Tunhorst did, so that may play into the way the rest of this race plays out. But seemingly, even pitting a lap or two earlier didn't affect his overall pace, as he's flat flying right now.
Well, the way this is looking, I don't think in terms of strategies can play a huge amount of difference into this thing. They're expecting to probably pit again at about 47, probably, I think we'd see. 46, 47. So maybe in about 12, 14 laps time. So we're kind of halfway to that second stage here, and after that, they're still going to have to pit at least once more. Minimum. So it's going to be a 3-stopper for everybody. I don't think that will really have a factor.
No, I think you're right there. Definitely a 3-stop strategy will work out as we see Tunhorst get held up a little bit, catching Thomas Peterson in a bad spot there through the chase. Lost some ground there as he had to work around the outside of the slower vehicle. So Eric Smith able to stretch out that lead just a little bit. Now as they go past the start-finish line, that lead will swell to a little over a second now, as we have 10 cars on the lead lap. Third place, Riley Thompson. He was the first of the leaders to pit the first time around, so he'll probably be the first to hit pit road once again once we get to that window. So, you know, things to keep an eye on there as we have a huge scramble right now for 15th. My goodness, look at this. Rory Collins in the 35 being overtaken by Michael Lane in the 62. Good overtake there. So move Michael Lane up to 15th, put Rory Collins back to 16th, as that was all coming out of the midsection there as they worked down Conrad straight into the chase. So good run for Michael Lane up to 15th, all 1 lap down from the leaders. But Eric Smith still out front, Tunhorst second, Riley Thompson third. Those are the 3 big ones right now, as it's a large 26-second gap back to Travis Henderson, I should say, in 4th, and then Brandon Whitworth some 47 seconds back in 5th.
Basically the name of the game for road racing is you got to race your own race. You don't, if you are several seconds back like Riley Thompson is, 5 seconds back, you just got to run your own race. Now for battle wise, if we look back to 6th and 7th place, even though they are separated by just a second, for Daniel Knight and Henry Bennett, this is their race, because it's going to be very difficult to make up an entire second. Oh, Daniel Knight hit the brakes a little too hard, spun around, and that's going to cost him a lot. It cost him the position, and now his front end is bent in pretty. That front end's pretty bent up, but he'll keep it running. He'll probably lose another spot or 2, but like I was saying, you gotta run your own race. You know, no matter how far back you are from the leader, if you're not battling for the lead, don't think about the leader. You gotta battle and get as best of a position as you can, because you're a full second behind, or not a full second, a full minute behind the leaders. You know, it's quite a difficult task to catch them, so you got to run your own race. And if the leaders make a mistake, like a very, very big major mistake, then you could potentially have a shot.
That was a huge shunt there for Daniel Knight in the 94. My goodness, took it firewall deep. Just the rear end swapped around, as you saw the replay on your screen there. And that broke the front end for sure as he tried to limp it along, but no steering response there. Had it pinned up against the outside barrier and brought it to the pits. That'll be the end of the run. He was in 6th position, so that's disappointing finish for Daniel Knight. Had a good run going, started 12th, was up to 6th, but it all went wrong, and that's Mount Panorama for you in a nutshell right there. One mistake, and you're going to find yourself back in the garage out of this event. So tough break for Daniel Knight. But, you know, gave it a good run until it all went wrong there.
just hit the brakes a little too hard, and that's what snapped the car around. And that's what happens in these V8s. They can sometimes, even though they're a little, for the most part, they look heavier. Their brakes snapping the car around one fell swoop.
Yeah, that weight transfer when you hit the brakes, all that weight comes to the nose, and you got to be careful with your steering input because you put all that weight over the front tires, and those are your steering tires as well. That can definitely throw off the balance, and that light end gets really light, especially when you have elevation changes like we saw there. That's a recipe for disaster. Rachel, you can speak pretty well to that. You know how all that stuff works. As our resident technical guru, the weight transfer can definitely bite you.
It certainly does, especially in these cars, because they have so much power, of course, going to the wheels that once you get the car unbalanced, you've suddenly got a lot of power going in a direction you don't want it to go. And with how much this track changes angle and direction, you catch a curb wrong and suddenly you've moved the weight off to one side, and that car's going to react to that, and with a huge amount of power in the back end, it's not going to hold you. There's nothing much that can hold you. We talked about people might be counter-steering because we've seen it. Trust me, if we look inside the cabs of some of these cars, inside the actual cabins, they'll be counter-steering the whole way around the lap. There is no such thing as going straight in a V8 supercar. There's just the chosen direction.
Points leader has wrecked, coming down to the Essence.
Big crash.
Yep. It looks like he'll limp it around. Looks like he's fine. He's limping around just fine, but that hurt the points leader heading into this race a lot.
That's major damage. That is serious damage. Clipped the wall on the outside and went rear end first, so he'll have knocked the rear end out of alignment probably on that car. That will be some quite significant repairs. Even just the bodywork damage alone will cost him major time on the track.
Fighting for the 7th position there with Felipe Savoy, and Savoy was kind of running a I don't know, more outside approach, if you will, and I think Mike Kelly thought he had an opportunity to make a pass and just grabbed a whole bunch of that curbing on the inside, sort of launched the left side off the ground, driving on 2 wheels like a stunt man, and pitched him back into the opposite direction, and caught that rear end, like you said, Rachel. So big time damage to the left side, to the rear end. Already a rough start as he pitted early for Mike Kelly, the points leader. Now a damaged race car to boot, adding to his complications as he will hold on to that 9th position, last car on the lead lap, but now damaged. Got to be of greater concern for him. And seemingly, when you're the points leader, these are the things you got to avoid. With 1 race left to go after this, he's putting himself in a rough spot come the next race at Myrtle Beach.
I know Mike Kelly.
Absolutely, and that's sorry.
I was just gonna say, all Mike Kelly wanted to do today was just have a good place finish, so we could have potentially locked up the championship. But that, unfortunately, that put that plan to back drawing board. So he just has to survive, get a decent finish, and then head into Myrtle Beach with fight of his life, basically.
Rachel, go ahead with what you were going to say there.
Oh, you basically just covered it. I thought you were coming to me then. Sorry.
No. It's, I like the opinions that you both bring as we all sort of see the same things, and I think maybe at some point during our own sim racing career we've been in a championship fight and felt the pressure of what it feels like to know that you're close to winning one. And I've experienced this when things go wrong and it's just you're sick to your stomach, and whether it's forced error or unforced errors, Kelly again grabs the wall. I've been keeping an eye on him, and things just sort of compounded tonight. No different as things have compounded for Mike Kelly, going from bad to worse. But we'll speed ahead and look at another battle here. 15th, 16th on the chart is Claude Belval and Daniel Knight. We already saw Wreck grab a new car and is back out and going. But these two having a good brawl for the 15th and 16th position.
Yeah, they certainly have, and what a race we've seen so far from all these guys today. This has been phenomenal up on the racetrack with so much action throughout the field, whether on the lead lap or not on the lead lap in this case. Seeing Knight unfortunately down there though is kind of heartbreaking. He's been fast all day. Seem now battling a lap down to try and recover scraps, so those scraps could still be a top 10 based on the way this is going. So if he keeps himself in one piece, he's got a real chance.
look back up towards the leaders, Matthew Tunhorse has closed back in on the rear bumper of Eric Smith now as they start lap number 37 of 81, so getting closer to halfway here. Eric Smith's pace maybe falling off, maybe those couple lap older tires, I should say, starting to rear their head as to overall grip and how he's able to get around Mount Panorama as we see him take a defensive line down the straightaway to get set up for Griffin's Bend. And that's sort of indicative of the fact that he knows that he's losing some pace, and Tunhorse is just waiting to pounce on him. So we could be seeing another one of these great battles that we saw maybe about 10 laps ago or so come out once again as these two continue to fight for the lead around the mountain. I'll say this as I watch them, and Taylor, I'll put it to you for what you're seeing watching these guys through. It seems that Eric Smith's a little bit better through the middle section, and then struggles to get off the corner down the long straightaway. So maybe that's where the tires come into play, is struggling for grip off the corners, but able to get around the corners better. Does that make sense?
Well, what I'm thinking is Eric Smith is better on these corners here, able to maneuver around these corners a lot better than once we get on these straightaways where Matthew can grab the draft, and especially with the older tires given to Eric Smith because of him pitting a little earlier. I don't think Eric has the straightaway speed that Matthew has, because Matthew seems to get right close to him on these straightaways, and then once we get into the middle section of the track with all the uphill evolution changes between going uphill and then going downhill, that's where Eric will be able to gain a little bit of time. So as you can see, Eric lost a lot of time on the straightaways, and we'll probably see here where Matthew will fall back a little bit when they go through these tight corners in the middle sections.
Rachel, I'll ask you this, as we saw Mike Kelly get upset by the curbing. How aggressive do you want to be on the curbs? Are there certain corners where the curbs are your friend and others where you want to avoid them, or do you really just want to avoid them altogether in these cars?
I think in general it depends on the weighting of the car and how you catch the corners, because there aren't many curbs here you can't use at Bathurst. I mean, as we're looking at the leaders right now, they're coming to the cutting. Typically there won't be any curbs here you want to particularly get on. Just a nice straight tight line to maximize speed. But one of the things that I know I personally have always enjoyed doing in road racing, I'm one of those weirdos that enjoys the big heavy ungainly cars. When you're carrying a large amount of speed, grabbing the curb helps rotate the car, especially in those very stiff cars like the V8 supercars, like the stock cars as well. Those being my favorite cars to race on the roads, weirdly enough, but there we go. The curbs are your friend. Where you've got them, use them. They help turn the vehicle, and you can just get up on those, and it just creates enough upset and friction that you can actually rotate the vehicle with it, especially at the really high speeds when they don't want to rotate. It just provides that little bit of assistance so you aren't steering too much, and steering can cause these cars to spin out. Steering too heavily, I should say, especially when the car's at maximum grip level. Just kind of nudging it round a bend, or hooking it, if you will, really helps. I mean, look at the kink here. You'll see them do it now. Eric Smith coming down, runs out wide, comes in, just cuts that curb and just brings it into the heavy braking. You'll see them get up on the curb here into the chase, just up there. But two wheels is it's a lifestyle.
It's kind of a fine line, isn't it? I mean, we've seen a few guys leverage the curbs and maybe get a little too much on the throttle then and see themselves spin around. So it seems to be maybe a fine line then. And correct me if I'm wrong, but you don't want to eat up too much of that curbing sometimes, because it can over-rotate your car, and especially on some worn tires, that might be the last thing that you want. Is that correct too?
It depends how you hit them. Like I say, if you're hitting them with the front wheels, you tend to be okay. But if you're kind of tucking in and catching a curb with the back wheel, as you're coming around a corner too tight and not intentionally going for the curbs, it could be a problem. Because if you're steering whilst you hit them, you've got a problem. The car needs to be relatively straight when you clip them, just to use them to your advantage, and it works fine. It's mostly a matter of tyres being worn. Hell, sometimes it's better to be on the curbs, but it's definitely more of a, once the cars, when you're using it to turn the car, fine, but when you accidentally clip them when you're not meaning to and you've got some steering in there, that's when it'll spin the car out.
Fair enough. Great explanation. I appreciate it. As always, you bring a lot of enlightenment to the booth and to our viewers, and teach them a little bit more about what they're seeing here. As it's the major series here at Mount Panorama. It's already been 39 really exciting, entertaining laps so far here for the penultimate race of this season championship. It's been a great battle between Eric Smith and Matthew Tunhorst. And Taylor, these two guys continue to lead around the field. Riley Thompson there in third. We'll do a full field rundown here once we get to halfway. But these two guys out front, what do you see that separates these two, if anything?
Honestly, I really can't see much difference. If I saw much difference, the gap between first and second would be as big as first to third. But you know, they're just running basically the same way. That's why Matthew was just having a little struggle trying to get by Eric Smith, is because he can't really pass him. Eric Smith was the same way. He had a hard time passing Matthew for quite some time, and you know, these two are just running basically identical. That's how it's been all race long. We've seen these two battling it out. Matthew follows what Eric does, and Eric follows what Matthew does if Eric was in second place. So these two are just running extremely identical. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah, pretty close between the two of them, as you saw a great battle on your screen there between Daniel Knight and Claude Belval once again fighting it out, as they seem to have been around each other a whole bunch this evening so far. And that's kind of the way it goes, is sometimes you get around a guy and, oh, big wiggle there from Belval, as he got real loose on the exit there. But sometimes you just get around these guys and you can't get away from them, Rachel. All race long, doesn't seem to matter how many laps you make, you always end up around the same guys.
Oh, absolutely. And once you kind of route similar paces, you'll just tend to spend race around those people, and you get used to them. You learn how they drive and how they race, and that helps you improve what you're doing on track as well, because you can measure yourself against them. And I mean, one thing when it comes to your leaders right now, of course, Smith and Tunhorst, both of them are very, very capable drivers. And what I seem to see from whoever's leading, yeah, they're pushing because first and second are both pushing, but you'll often find when you actually have a good lead, I should say, these guys aren't in that situation right now, but if one of them gets a second or two gap, you'll see them change how they're racing. Rather than right now where they're pushing hard to stay away from each other, when you have a decent lead on it, and you'll basically see them race to the car behind them. You'll want to maintain a gap, so you'll see that gap remain fairly constant rather than widening out. Why? Well, if the guy behind you can only run a 2:05 and you can run a 2:03, what's the point in running a 2:03 and burning your tyres up so he comes back later in the race? You run to what he's running, you maintain that time gap, and that way suddenly you've got tyres spare and he hasn't.
Well put. Got to be aware. It takes a little bit of brains to find success on the racetrack. And well, as we cross the halfway point now, or get close to the halfway point of tonight's race, let's take a look at our iRacing Midway Race Break, brought to you by iRacing, leading online racing simulation. Developed from the beginning as a centralized racing and competition service, iRacing organizes, hosts, and officiates races on virtual tracks all around the world. In the fast-paced world of esports, iRacing is a one-stop shop for online racing with officially sanctioned racing from NASCAR, IndyCar, IMSA, World of Outlaws, and more. So let's take a look at the running order as they stand right now on lap number 41. It is Eric Smith out front. Started first, runs first. Matthew Tunhorst close behind in second. It's been those two all race long. Third, it's going to be Riley Thompson. Travis Henderson in fourth. Brandon Whitworth fifth. Henry Bennett in sixth. Jess Coleman seventh. Felipe Savoy in eighth. Mike Kelly, your point leader, rough day for him. He's in ninth. And the last car in the lead lap in 10th. First car one lap down. It's going to be Thomas Peterson.
Coming up after Peterson, we've got William Fletcher in 11th place, lap one lap down. Also, Joshua Kanata in 12th place. Michael Lane with Claude Belval and Daniel Knight in 15th. He's on pit road right now. Andy Banfield in the 16th spot with Rory Collins, Jason Wallet, and of course the cars a little bit further down. Samuel Doherty, 5 laps down at the moment. Marshall Williams is in 20th place, 7 laps down, and 14 laps down. Our first retiree, Terry Wellman.
That's been a look at your iRacing Midway race break. For more information on the wide variety of sim racing possibilities online, visit iRacing.com to sign up today. So there we go, halfway through the Bathurst 500 here for the Majors Series, the Atlantic Division on display here on LSRTV. Happy to bring you this. And before we get into our second round of green flag pit stops, let's take the opportunity to step aside and catch our breath. These guys have been putting on one whale of a show, so we'll step aside, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back for coverage of the second round of green flag pit stops right here on LSRTV.
Assist to the front bumper, and he hits him again now. Ray Alfala into the outside wall.
He's going to pass nearly 3 cars down that front straightaway, and he's going to get them all done with. What amazing!
Racely to the inside goes Logan Clapman is going to touch in. Pit press sideways. What a save!
Look to the outside as Cronkite goes off. De Jong into second place.
Going for the switchback. Oh, pinpoint driving.
It's howling down to the inside.
I tried this contact though. As wide left of the racetrack, Chris Renner drives it back down underneath, and he takes that second spot right back. Joker goes to Garrett Lowe. Garrett Lowe should take victory with all that contact.
He's going to try and make the move around the outside the Parabolka. That's not going to work, but he's going to try and get the cut back here. Get the run out the Parabolka. That's beautifully done there. Makashube, there's a little bit of door banging as well.
Welcome back, race fans, here to Mount Panorama, however you would like to say, whatever accent you'd like to use, but the Bathurst 500 here for the Majors Series, the Atlantic Division. On lap number 43 here, getting ready for a second round of pit stops to take place. Eric Smith still out front, Matthew Tunhorst in second. He's lost a little bit of ground since we stepped away for the commercial break, and these guys still driving hard. David Schildhaus on the call here, along with Rachel Whiteford, Taylor Fry in the booth, and of course Hugo Luis, our producer, bringing you all the sights and sounds of tonight's racing action. And Rachel, been a treat so far. 43 laps on the board of 81. Been a two-man show between Eric Smith and Matthew Tunhorst. And
Yeah, it really has
just
been.
looking at it.
Phenomenal one.
Oh, sorry, I wasn't.
Sorry,
I let
I thought
off.
you were
and
done.
I just can't stop talking. I apologize.
He paused too much like a pause. Sorry about that one, but yeah, it's been an incredible race between those two. Smith and Thunhorst, just phenomenally equally classed in this event. Riley Thompson's been holding on, but really not close enough. 7 seconds back now. Has always been kind of best of the rest in this event, in that breast cancer awareness car, which is very topical, seeing as it's October, which is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So, good representation by Thompson. As the cars behind them is in a different race entirely. Travis Henderson, 37 seconds back in 4th place. Then it just drops off by another 20 seconds, then another 20-30 seconds to the next one. So Whitworth and Bennett and The field just is very separated right now. 20 to 30 seconds between most cars. Apart from those occasional little pairs of racing, a couple of cars on pit road getting that service, and we should have the leaders heading in about 4 laps time, I think.
Yeah, sounds about right, as they'll prepare for their second of what we expect to be 3 pit stops here, as Eric Smith continues to saw on the wheel, giving it everything he's got out there in number 32. And Taylor, past halfway now, these guys battling between the two of themselves, and we saw what was about a 6-second gap when Tunhorst was out in front before this the first round of pit stops that we saw. Now coming up to the second one, pressure's on as these two are nose to tail. What do you expect to see? Do you think they'll try and pit around the same time, the same lap, or do you think they'll try and switch it up?
It's hard to predict, but if I had to, I would say that these two are gonna pit around the same time of each other. Whenever one of them pits, the other one will be down. If not at the same time, it would be definitely the next lap, because they want to get back to racing next to each other. I wouldn't be surprised if they try and outplay each other, go as long as they physically can, and then head down pit road, because these two are really close to each other. They've been neck and neck pretty much the entire race, so we'll see what happens under the pit stops, but my prediction is that if one of these guys comes down, the other one will be coming down around the same time.
Rachel, looking at the clock, as I like to do, we've been doing this for an hour and a half now. These guys have been going an hour and a half, 94, almost 95 minutes now to be exact, without a break, except for that one pit stop for about 45 seconds or so. As here comes Eric Smith now down to pit road, getting on hard. Oh, he's sideways, getting everything he can. Oh my goodness. That was almost a big moment there for Eric Smith. Shows you how hard he's pushing, but now they get a chance to catch a breather, if you will, as they go to their pit box again. But when does fatigue start to play into this event?
About lap 5. Oh no, that was a tactical move. He came in very, very late there to throw off Thunhorst, hoping Thunhorst would already be committing to actually staying out for the lap. Smith did that on purpose to just trick him out onto the track so he could come in on his own, get some clean air, which will be big for him, of course, helps him relax on the track. But yeah, fatigue sets about lap 5 here. This track is repetitive and it's also incredibly hard. So these guys are definitely tired by now.
A big moment coming onto pit road, but that's really what can gain you time out on the racetrack. It's a fine line to push like that, but Eric Smith felt the gamble was worth it. Gets himself onto pit road by himself so he can come out, in theory, by himself, have some clean air, and maybe not have Tunhorst all over the back bumper so he can run some laps. So we'll see as Eric Smith continues to get his service, almost wrapped up there. Now the onus is on Tunhorst to get himself a nice in lap and get onto pit road. We'll see where it all cycles out as Eric Smith's back and rejoin the race now. So we'll look at Tunhorst and see how he responds as he works his way through the middle portion of the track. If he comes this time by, and Taylor, I guess to your point, as you predicted, Tunhorst should probably look at coming in this time then, right?
Yep, that's how, if Smith just wanted to be alone at this point, then Tunhorst should be coming down this time, if not next time by. So we'll look, keep an eye on Matthew.
You don't want Eric Smith to be comfortable. You want to do something that's going to make him uncomfortable. If his desire is to run by himself, you don't want to give him that. You want to get right back out there and give him a mirror full, or even beat him and cycle through to be in front of him. That's really what I think what the goal should be here. We'll see as he comes under the Armorall Bridge. No, he's passing up pit road, so Taylor, he'll stay out another lap at least.
Right. We'll see what happens. Like I said, if Tunhorst is going to try and run as long as he can, and if his strategy is to try and intimidate Smith for as long as he can, he'll have to be coming down pit road here shortly soon. Another thing that I'd like to ask everybody, we were talking about like when fatigue sets in for these drivers. Reading what's been going on in chat today with the international drivers, say that these drivers are going to be feeling sore tomorrow. Do you guys think that this is a more of a physical challenge for these drivers or a mental challenge for these drivers?
Rachel, I'll defer to you. Go for it.
It's a mental stress. Many road tracks aren't this bad. They're fairly relaxing. Last time out, of course, we had Suzuka. It's a very relaxing track. It's fairly metronomic. You get into a rhythm. You can't afford a rhythm at Bathurst because the cars are just so wild with these V8 supercars. You've got to be on top of the car, which is hard enough to drive at the best of times. But because you obviously can't just rely on downforce to hold you on the track. You've really got to be driving this thing. It is very much a sit up and drive machine. There's a lot of traffic up here ahead of your leaders. As you combine that with the track like Bathurst, and it's horrible. It's not fun at all, you know? Driving around here to have fun, fine. Racing? No, not fun at all. It's great to watch though.
81 laps of this, it's definitely got to put a sore on for everybody's shoulders because they're sweeping left and right, and they're trying to save the car counter steer from almost spinning out. And so not only is it like you'll be extremely tired by the end of this, but you'll also be extremely sore.
I'm going to be sore, and I'm not even driving one of these things. I'll tell you that right now. The voice might be sore. That'll probably be it for the broadcast team. Very exciting stuff as Mike Kelly's moved through into 9th, even with that beat-up Holden. We saw him get into the barrier earlier in this event. The John Deere, nothing runs like a deer, it says on the back, and boy, that's still true to this moment right now. Is Mike Kelly giving it a great run when you're the points leader and you have a bad day. You can't give up on it. You got to keep after it, and so kudos to Mike Kelly as Matthew Tunhorse now does hit pit road. So here's the answer to that. 2 laps after Eric Smith, Matthew Tunhorse comes to pit road for his service. So now the eyes will be on the exchange. Where does it all cycle through? As Eric Smith's had a lap and a half, an out lap plus 1 good flying lap to try and make up any advantage that he can. And Eric Smith out on the track getting a nice pull down Conrad Straight from Mike Kelly, so that'll help him too as he works through and gets set up for the chase. This is going to be this could have big sweeping effects on this middle portion of the race as they get set up here. On lap number 46, Eric Smith through cleanly. So where will they cycle out? Rachel, keep an eye on it. On Tunhorse coming out, still sitting in his pit stall. See how this thing cycles out.
Yeah, we certainly will, and that'll be a big one for them, of course. Remember the name of a friend there. Thunhorst, of course, coming out of his box now. Exiting here is pretty simple. It's a nice, easy way out of pit road. It's much easier than the entrance. Heading up now as, there we go. That's Smith coming out just ahead of him. So these guys are really well balanced in terms of pace, but Thunhorst will have to warm his tyres up now. So Eric Smith getting a lap on him, a big advantage because he now has the slightly warmer tyres, and you'll see just how much he pulls ahead here over the mountain because those tyres have to click instantly. You're going into really hard racing terrain already, and that'll have a big impact.
Yeah, well done on the exchange there. Eric Smith did what he needed to do. Gets out to about the same size gap as he probably had before the cycle of green flag pit stops. As Tunhorse comes out second, got Mike Kelly on the back bumper there, a lapped car. Felipe Savoy not too far behind as well, 2 lappers there. So Eric Smith checked off the box what he needed to do to hold on to the lead, maybe increase his gap ever so slightly as well. And again, on the warmer tires, able to push a better pace as Tunhorse comes up to speed and gets the temperature into the tires. So seemingly everything going Eric Smith's this way now, and he can probably try and stretch out that lead as they work through this third stint now, leaving one more pit stop to go to get to the end of this thing as we're on lap 47 of 81. So Taylor, now put yourself in the shoes of one Matthew Tunhorse. Second place, a little bit of a gap now out front to Eric Smith. What do you got to do here? Do you just got to slowly chip away, or do you try and get it all back very quickly to assert yourself back out front?
Well, you don't want to make yourself try and decrease the gap too aggressively to where it could potentially make you have a fatal mistake. So if I am Matthew, just take it nice and easy. You're just as fast as Eric. Even though you're a second and a half behind, you will be able to track him down. And plus, we just barely got over the halfway point. There's still a lot of time left for Matthew to chase down Eric and be able to contend with him to pass him for the lead.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And Rachel, you look at him here as the gap between first and second's about, it was 1.7 seconds at the line there. And I'm sure we'll see it maybe stick around there or shrink just a little bit. But if you're Eric Smith out front with a nice lead like that, what are you doing now? How are you setting your pace to make sure you keep the right pace? As you spoke to earlier, don't run a 203 if a 204 or 205 will suffice.
Absolutely, it's all about looking after your tyres and maintaining what you've got. You don't want to overuse things, but we are looking right now at P8 Mike Kelly, series points leader, of course, racing here with Philippe Savoy, who's coming up right behind him now, of course. Kelly has damage on his car from that big crash, of course, at the heights up top on the racetrack. And Savoy's car very well intact, actually, looking pretty clean at the moment with that Ford Falcon. Just lost some time actually going over the top of the mountain, not quite as quick. And this is the battle, of course, for the first of the lap down cars. Not that it has much impact in road racing, of course. Staying on that lap down, even if there was a full course caution, we don't wave people around in road racing. So while though gaining a bit more over the top of the heights and down, perhaps Kelly a little bit gun shy going up across the skyline as he was before.
Yeah, it's when you have a moment or an off or any mistake made in a particular section of a racetrack, the next time you come by, or even every time you come by, it can creep into your mind and you sort of take it a little more tentatively, or at least I know I did, and maybe that was a mistake on my part to think about those. As Taylor, you said earlier, you can't think about the mistakes, can't let it creep in your mind, because if you think about it, you just might do it again. But you know, seemingly everything going okay now. Is we'll see as they go by the start-finish line, but Eric Smith looking good out front, and Riley Thompson still there in third. Travis Henderson fourth, Brandon Whitworth fifth. So seemingly nothing really changes within the top five, and that's due to how spread out these guys are. So about a tenth of a second fell off the lead there. So Toro Norris maybe a little bit better pace right now as we get on lap 49. When you're going around this racetrack and you have all these huge gaps, how do you keep yourself focused, I guess, would be my question as a race car driver. How do you focus on hitting your marks, especially at a challenging racetrack like this?
I'll let Rachel.
Sorry.
No, I was just gonna say I'll let Rachel do it, because she is, I think the longest track that I've ever raced on was Le Mans, and even then it was hard for me to keep focused. So I'll let you take it over, Rachel.
It's about partially keeping relaxed. You've got to focus in certain places, and the rest of the time you've got to just lose focus. So, for example, the start here of the lap, of course, you've got a nice long straight. The two straights here are where you have to just wind down. You know, relax your fingers, relax your hands, wiggle a bit in the seat, whatever you need to do. Just try and keep yourself a little looser, if you will. Calm down. Just stretch your eyes, stretch your hands. Try and do something to just unwind for a brief moment. You've got 10-20 seconds to just let loose. Doesn't feel like a lot, but it can be huge, because once you actually climb the mountain and ascend it, you've got to really focus. But even then, there are some sections that are fairly rhythmic, and you can actually flow well through them without having to think too hard. The big places to think, of course, the cutting, the S's and dipper, and even then dipper becomes fairly metronomic. And of course, Forest Elbow, the critical one. The rest of it is pretty bread and butter racetrack. It's all manageable. It's just the big heavy braking zones you've got to worry about, and the cars will otherwise keep themselves in one piece. It's just a matter of finding that time to force yourself to just tune out, to give yourself a moment, because if you don't, you'll find yourself drifting off in a place where you really have to concentrate.
Very difficult to keep focus at a track like this for so long. You know, you're running 81 laps. The times that you're running is over 2 minutes. You know, it's hard to keep track of all the corners and stuff. You know, if you're not a well-experienced road course driver, if you're just like an oval driver, just try it out Bathurst for, you know, maybe the first or second time, and you're running the major series. You know, you'll be asking yourself if this was 81 laps or a full 24-hour race. So I guess I'll throw this stat out of the way real quick. If Eric does win this race, it would be his fourth win of the season, according to the standings.
Yeah, it wouldn't be a bad way to head into the final race with 4 wins under your belt. Like we said, he won the last time out at Suzuka. And Suzuka's not necessarily a super easy racetrack to get around either. I don't think it's as challenging as this one. Many racetracks are not as challenging as this one, Rachel, but Suzuka, definitely a technical track, a lot of back and forth direction changes that you got to master. But to come in and have that momentum, it's got to be a big boost. And to Taylor's earlier point, if you're a guy coming into Bathurst for maybe this is your first time seeing a track like this, it's got to be 81 laps has to seem like a punishment for a crime you didn't commit almost.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's one thing you've really got to, unfortunately, deal with at a place like this. It's just an aggressive place that doesn't really give you any rope. It's a horrible place, you know, it will punish you whether you deserve it or not.
And that's why when you see a performance put on by guys like Eric Smith and Matthew Thunhorst, they deserve all the praise that they're getting, because this is not easy to do. And again, without the benefit of yellow and pacing and all the things to sort of regroup and catch your breath and flex your hands a little bit and move your feet around, these guys are going to be at it for 3 hours straight without much of a rest except for a 45-second pit stop. So it's very challenging and very tough. But again, to come out and run well or even win this thing, you feel very accomplished, as that gap between first and second place has grown to a little over 2 seconds now here on lap 51 of 81, so 30 laps to go. Eric Smith firmly in control now, much more comfortable than we've seen him at any point during this race as he works past the lap car there and moving through this field. That was Samuel Dowdy that he moved past in the 66. So Eric Smith enjoying the biggest lead that he's enjoyed all race long, and seemingly pulling away, so everything firmly in control for him to get that 4th win of the year, Taylor.
Well, you mentioned earlier about, or I mentioned earlier about, like, mental endurance and all that sort of stuff. We're looking at, what, 2.5, 3 hours of racing and only 45 seconds a pit stop, and these guys are looking at like 3, 4, maybe 5 stops. So the most time you're looking at for a break is about 2.5, 3 minutes for a 3-hour race, where you're constantly, making turns. You gotta constantly think about your corners and stuff like that. And yeah, we're past the halfway point, and Matthew is actually losing time to Eric for. He's not really gaining a lot of time as he was, just the last pit cycle, where he was able to get up to Eric and was able to battle nose to tail with him for the longest time. But there's still, trying to do quick math here, about an hour left of racing here at the very, very, very most. So, there's still a ton of time left for Matthew to gain a lot of time. It's a mental endurance race, and that's what the Major Series is all about.
We'll focus on a battle here on the track. This is Michael Lane in the number 62, currently in 12th position. He's got a very hungry Joshua Kanata in 13th. It's sort of tracking him down, and I remember talking a lot about Joshua Kanata when I last covered this series back at Pocono. Kanata was a front runner there at the Tricky Triangle and gave a great run. Seemingly a little bit of maybe a fish out of water here at Bathurst. Still giving it a good run in 13th, 1 lap off the pace, trying to challenge Michael Lane for 12th. But a good battle there is, that car a little bit beat up on the front end. I see some body work missing from the right front, but still pushing it for all he's worth. And every time we've seen him out in the Major Series this year, Joshua Kanata has always pulled more out of the race car than most people can, and seemingly no different here today.
Yeah, absolutely. Kanata's always been one of those strong drivers when it comes to this stuff. He's been solidly more, I'd say, competent in all disciplines we've seen so far. This one perhaps isn't his strongest suit. 13th place, not as good as he's had in quite some time, but these are a very niche car, to be fair. Most of the road cars have fairly forgiving tendencies. This is very niche. Kanata's been good in pretty much every car they've come to in this series, and that's been a big, arrow in his quiver. He is very multi-talented, and he's going to get solid good results in this one, I think, but it's not going to be his best result this season.
No, and I'll try to imagine maybe what he's thinking right now, and I could be way off. That's happened before. I've been wrong once or twice before, but he's thinking, hey, I got to come out here. I got to do this anyways. Had success at other racetracks. Maybe this isn't one that I'll have a whole bunch of success, but still something he can learn from and add to his skill set, as you said, a big quiver I believe you put it, talent points for him to use, and this is one he can sharpen for later on down the road. Maybe Majors will come back here once again next season, and he'll have a 81 lap race in his bag to full experience from to run better. Today, nothing to hang his head about so far, running 13th. Doing a great job. He's kept it on the road for the most part. So Joshua Kanata gave it a great run. Michael Lane pulling away a little bit there in 12. And we'll keep an eye on these guys as they work up the mountain. We'll give a call to William Fletcher as well in 11. I haven't talked about him yet today. And that number 76, the Texaco Haviland paint scheme, looking a little rough as well, but getting by in 11th, doing a nice job there as well.
Yeah, doing exactly what he has to do, and 11th place is moving forwards. He's definitely had some good pace at parts during his race, so we'll see what he can hold on to, of course. Nice seeing the Haviland machine there, of course, but that, I believe, will be, Bennett just coming up behind him now to try and make that pass. Bennett last car on the lead lap in P6. That is crazy. Yeah, P6 out of 21 is the last car on the lead lap, folks. That is how unforgiving this track is. And even then, P6 is 1 minute and 46 seconds behind the leader, which is only 15 seconds or so off a lap. That's crazy. Speaking of a lap, where is Eric Smith? Coming out of Forest Elbow with Thunhorst just behind him. Riley Thompson heading down as well. He's holding 10 seconds back. Thompson's performing incredibly well in this one.
Doing everything he needs to do for a guy in a championship fight. I bet he'd love to be able to jump up there and fight with the top two, but he's got to feel really good about being at least the third best car out there in a field that's pretty strung out and doing the best that they can with what they got. So Riley Thompson keeping a lot of pressure on Mike Kelly, who Taylor, we've seen has had his own fair share of difficulties here at Mount Panorama. He's had a couple of offs, some things go wrong, and he's still holding on to 8th place right now, the second car 1 lap down. So maybe for Mike Kelly, crisis averted for as bad as it could have been for as hard as he hit in that one wreck that we saw.
Yeah, his day didn't start off too well. He didn't start off in the best of positions, and then he went down pit road on the first lap. And then once he had that accident, we figured that it was I figured it was too bad that he was going to continue to drop positions and possibly be either the first or second retiree of this race. But no, he's hanging on to 8th place. So at the very least, we'll see about a 50-60 point lead over Riley Thompson, who's in 3rd, unless hold up there, Eric Smith got in the wall. There's a mistake that we were all hoping that Eric Byrne never had.
Oh yeah, absolutely. He just looped it there out of the... Oh my gosh. That was a second unforced error there, Rachel. Those are the things that can really just throw away a win, and we've seen him do it twice now. The first time he was able to make up for this one, maybe a little more catastrophic.
Yeah, absolutely. And Thunhorst now just heading through the dip, but that's cost him a large amount of time in terms of what he wanted. But guys, he's picking up a lot of dirt right now. And yeah, the damage in the front there of Smith's car is looking much worse than he had. That would really cost him top end speed on the straights. That could be what gives this to Thunhorst.
Really unfortunate there is, again, he almost loses it once again coming out. He did. He locked up once again going into Forest Elbow. Hits the outside retaining wall with the right side bodywork. Now there's damage to the right rear quarter panel. Things really falling apart quick at the seams for Eric Smith. He's got to go into full damage control mode right now as he's getting passed down the straightaway. That car is hurt.
For Eric Smith, once he made that mistake and he got damage already, and you can see him making more bobbles and all that sort of stuff. Gotta wonder if that mistake is just moving in the back of Eric's mind, now knowing that he just probably lost this race because he made one mistake, and now it's going to be difficult for Matthew to lose the lead because Matthew's only competition was Eric, and now that competition is pretty much gone.
Well, a guy that benefits out of all of this, you saw him go by in the pink car. That's Riley Thompson. We were just talking about how he'd love a chance to improve his position, but didn't seem likely, barring a catastrophe. Well, now he finds himself in 2nd place, much to the chagrin of one Mike Kelly, and that's an additional position, more points than he probably would have gotten otherwise. So things improving for Riley Thompson's championship bid. Again, shaping up for what should be a really exciting conclusion at Myrtle Beach. But if you're Eric Smith, Rachel, I'll put it to you, you got to get on top of these mistakes. It's hard enough to make one mistake, recover, and get back to where you were. Now you've made a second, more egregious mistake. Seemingly this one's off the board now.
Yeah, it certainly is, and I think that's just changed the entire dimensions of this. Thompson there ahead of Smith, and I don't think he's really going to be able to keep up there. He's going to have to bring that into the pits soon, and of course that 45, 46 was our pit window. So we're about 10 in, so he's got another 10 laps where he realistically can come in for what would be the final stop. That car's pretty heavily mushed to keep going, but as long as he wants to try, I don't think he's going to really hemorrhage much more than a top 3, maybe top 4 finish with how spread out the field is, but he's lost a lot of time very quickly. That is a concern. Could it be worth it to come in and get some damage done? Maybe fight 4th place for that one? Maybe stay in 3rd? I don't know.
With no championship hope on the line for Eric Smith, I guess his strategy opens up a little bit more. He's just here to win. He wants a 4th checkered flag. Seemingly not going to be in the cards for him here tonight with what's happened over the last lap. But again, I think to your point, you're correct. He can try and control and manage this situation in a way that at least helps him keep 3rd for a podium finish as he bypasses pit road one more time. He has such a huge gap back to 4th place Travis Henderson, some 42 seconds or so, at least last time by. He can afford to make his pit stop, take some time to make repairs, maybe not fix all of it, but if he wants to get on the podium, I think he can spend some time fixing the car and still run well enough to run away from other guys just because of his overall pace. But if that car's hurt, which I don't see a clean corner or fender or bumper left on it, Taylor, he's got to make sure he doesn't do the wrong thing, I should say, on pit road and leave himself in a worse position where he's not even going to get a good top 3 finish.
Well, if I remember correctly, this series does have one quick repair. I know I may be wrong, but I remember early races in the season had a quick repair. So if these drivers do have a quick repair, then Eric could possibly have been saved by it unless he used it on one of his one of the stops that he did earlier. But unless I get a confirmation from Mike, may see Eric come down pit road, hopefully sooner rather than later, because Eric, even with that damage, losing time and having the potential risk, because that arrow being affected could make the car a little looser, could make it spin out in these quarters a little easier than expected. I fear for Eric a little bit because I don't want him to get too much damage. I don't want anybody to get any damage in these kinds of races.
I think I can hear Rachel screaming in the back of my mind that he can't pit yet because that'll force him out of the good pit strategy that he needs to stay on to make this one more stop. Am I correct in that, Rachel?
Fairly, but he's hemorrhaging a lot of time, so you need to think about what he has to play with here because, to be fair, with what his position is in now, one stop for... Oh, that's interesting. One stop for the repair, maybe no tyres. Wouldn't take him too long. So that's an interesting call. I don't know. He's got 40 seconds to play with, so if I was him, I'd probably come and grab that spare car. Maybe he can hang on for another few laps. I mean, his outside pit window would be, I'm thinking now, mathematically, 1 or 2 more laps.
I would agree with that.
So it's plausible.
I think you're right.
Actually, he will catch Riley Thompson, I think. If he can hold on for about 4 laps, let's say outside chance 4 laps, 3 laps, okay. Stretching it. He's desperate. He needs something. 2 laps or 3 laps. 2 laps. 2 laps and he's good. He will make it. They can do 22, 23 laps. Yes, I think he can still get 2nd place if he really holds this together, gets 2 more laps in the bag, pits now, or pits then, he is good to the end. It's the outside edge of the window. He won't have great tyres towards the end, but I think he can hold off Thompson. He has been considerably faster.
I believe that even with a little worse tire, Eric Smith can probably outdrive Riley Thompson on newer tires just based off of what we've seen. But again, you have to now consider the fact that he's made a host of errors, unforced errors that have taken him out of the contention for the lead put him in this position that we're talking about now. So you have to factor those in as well, that as he steps up and pushes, he is making mistakes that are adversely affecting his race here. So, you know, if he stays out a couple more laps, comes in, grabs the new car, he's going to have to keep that one clean. He can't toss it into the fence like we've been seeing, even in his pursuit of Riley Thompson. I think he's going to be able to pull that off, but a tough position right now for Eric Smith. Fortunate to have that spare car to be able to grab, but all that is seemingly only going to amount to, at best, a second-place finish, barring some sort of catastrophic meltdown from Matthew Thunhorst, which, based off what we've seen so far, he's not made any mistakes tonight. He's done a great job, kept it clean, and Taylor is appearing to be positioning himself well to come in and grab a win here in his lone guest drive in the Atlantic Series.
Yeah, that is correct, because this is Matthew's one and only start in the Atlantic Series, and I guess he picked a good time to do it, because if you were to be in a European driver and you come to an Atlantic Series and you end up wrecking, you know, it kind of just feels like a waste of a guest drive. You know, you want to use that guest drive when you know you feel confident enough to race good on like the Atlantic stage or whatever. So for Matthew, definitely the best spot for him to put the guest drive up for him, because Eric Smith has led 35 laps, and now Matthew is on track to pass him for that most amount of laps led. He has 22, so there's still a chance that Matthew can still lead the most laps heading out of this race.
I think he'll care more about taking that checkered flag, and if he can lead the most laps and take the checkered flag, that's the double payday, if you will. And our championship leader, I saw him duck onto pit road in that severely beat up John Deere Holden, but keeping it together with duct tape and bungee cords at best. I think some of that bodywork looking a little suspicious, but he's able to still run around. He's got to have himself a good day here to salvage as many points as he has encountered a host of issues, many of it his own making as well. So we talked about at the outset of the show, Rachel, the guys that are able to avoid these self-inflicted mistakes are probably the ones that are going to find the most success, and you just got to wait for that guy in front of you to possibly make a mistake to open the door for you to take advantage. But now, if you're Matthew Thunhorst, the writing's on the wall. This is your race to win. You no longer have a serious threat in Eric Smith, who's taken himself out, so you can really dial it back, right, if you want to, on your overall pace.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what he really should be doing. There's no need to win by 8 seconds or more, depending on what he's doing. It's showboating to go faster. Right now, he's in a flipping comfortable place. He's going to have like 22 laps to go, and then he's golden. That's one pit cycle, essentially. Speaking of which, here comes Eric Smith. He's gone past the pit roads another time. He's got to be coming in this time. I think that's his window right now. He's in it. He can make this when he pits, and he's still only 8 seconds back, so he's held the time. In fact, he's gained 2 seconds back on Riley Thompson. So he's definitely within striking distance here. That is something he has to remember. He could definitely attack. 8 seconds he'll eat up no time. So he's got to be coming probably this lap. I'd like to think he'll come in, and then he's good to go.
I imagine you're correct. I think we will see Eric Smith close in on Riley Thompson before this thing reaches its conclusion at lap 81, and give himself a position or an opportunity to get that second spot back. And if he does that, even if he holds on to third, we're going to try and talk to your podium finishers, and I'll be interested to hear his thoughts of how this all played out. That'll be something to look forward to at the conclusion of this race, so definitely don't go anywhere when the checkered flag flies, because we're going to bring in the top 3 if possible and hear from them. And Eric Smith, he's going to have probably a lot to say, and it's probably going to sound a little sad, but still nonetheless interesting to hear from the driver who had this sort of up and down day, what his thoughts were. But Riley Thompson working through and past lapped car here. That's Joshua Kanata going another lap down, so 2 laps down for him. 6 cars on the lead lap. Henry Bennett there in 6th, holding on to the last car on the lead laps. 4 cars, 1 lap down. So a lot of what we expected by the practice sheet, the spread out speeds leading to a lot of lapped cars, and that leads to a little bit of intrigue, Taylor. So you got to be careful tiptoeing around these guys. But from what I've seen, a lot of friendly lapped cars giving these guys wide berth to get through.
And that's, you know, because being a lap car at Bathurst is extremely difficult. Because it's basically like passing a normal car, which we've said it a ton of times that there's not a lot of passing opportunities other than the long straightaways. In these corners, for the lap cars, it's difficult to move out of the guy's way because there's so little room to get by these guys that it could either take out the person trying to get by the lapper, or the lapper themselves getting into the wall, or, you know, overdriving the corner, making a mistake. It's just being a lap car at Bathurst when you're going through these tight uphill corners and downhill S's and all that sort of stuff. It's difficult, but once you get on the straightaways, you can move out of the way, go to the left or the right side of the track, and let them cruise on by.
I remember the topic came up at Pocono of lap cars maybe not being so friendly, and Rachel, it's nice to see everyone getting along, playing nice, and you know, maybe realizing this is not the kind of track that you want to mess around with and be a guy that causes an issue for a lead lap driver. So it's good to see them doing that and being nice to one another. But you know, as we look around this racetrack again, trying to find some good battles, I understand that Mike Kelly might be experiencing some more issues. He's still on pit road. So we talked about him holding on barely, and now seemingly things going wrong in the pits. I'm not sure what might be going on there, but this has definite championship implications.
Oh, yeah. He was sitting 7th place before he came down pit road. He's dropped all the way down to 16th place. So if Riley comes out of this in the top 3, gets a podium, we'll be looking at a new championship leader heading into Myrtle Beach.
I'm not seeing any actual repair work in progress on that car. Although he's down and away now, so that was, I think, mandatory repairs to probably engine or steering he's just had to go through, because Bathurst is definitely a steering killer, and he's had a pretty massive impact on that left front, so possibly mandatory repairs to steering before he's actually been able to get out on track.
It's interesting. He, you know, his incident, if I recall, was you know, it's been a few laps since that occurred, and he was running fairly decent lap times, if I recall. So I'm not sure if, you know, maybe he had more that we just didn't see, or something else that was keeping him there. Maybe in addition to what we already had. As he loops it coming off on cold tires, that's the real danger we talked about. Guys on cold tires, and he's brought it back to the pits once more. So things going from bad to worse for Mike Kelly, the championship leader. That's going to be it. He's pulling the cord. He's done. That's going to be an early finish for Mike Kelly. And now, if that message is getting communicated to Riley Thompson, the championship leader's out of this event. Yikes, that's huge.
Now we have Eric Smith down pit road getting his service done. So what Rachel was saying before about Eric Smith having to come down pit road maybe a little bit earlier than everybody else, so he can get the damage repaired and, you know, try and stay out for these final 20 laps. That Rachel was correct, and Eric Smith will be down pit road. He'll lose about 2 spots, but he'll have a pretty fast car until we get these next pit stops going.
Well, feasibly he'll lose 2 spots, but they still have to pit, don't forget. Realistically, he'll come out as 8 or 9 seconds he is behind Riley Thompson once he pits and once Henderson and Whitworth pit as well, which completely changes the spell of this race. So he'll be back in 3rd and with a real shot at taking 2nd.
The race now for Eric Smith is to get back to Riley Thompson. Speaking of Riley Thompson, I was looking back at that replay that Hugo put up of Mike Kelly spinning it out. I think he jumped out of the car and was hitting that escape button as fast as he can, because he was sitting dead sideways in the middle of the track with Riley Thompson coming around a blind corner. That could have been real ugly to take out the 2nd place car like that. So I think that has led to the expedient exit for Mike Kelly. But again, now this sets up what should be, if nothing else changes and Riley Thompson can bring it back in 2nd or even 3rd, he's going to make up a whole grip of points on Mike Kelly. And going into Myrtle Beach, a short track with a lot of beating and banging, much different than what we've seen here today. Boy, that if Mike Kelly somehow doesn't win this championship, he's going to look back at tonight at Mount Panorama as something that definitely led to that happening, and him unable to put together a clean race.
Yeah, the highest Mike Kelly is going to finish is either going to be in the 18th for the 19th position because there are 2 drivers behind him that are still out on the track. Michael Wade is out of the race, and then we have Marshall Williams and Samuel Daughtry, I think I said that right, on the track, just a couple more laps behind Mike Kelly. So Mike Kelly is definitely going to lose a couple more spots before this race is official. So Riley Thompson is definitely going to have, if Riley Thompson can end this race at the podium, yeah, it'll be a very good points day for Riley heading into the final race of the Major Series.
Rachel, I'll put it to you. If you're Riley Thompson, you know you got a very fast driver in Eric Smith, who now has a fully repaired car. He's got fresh tires and probably a better overall pace. That's going to be someone you're going to have to deal with before this thing is said and done, as we're now inside of 20 laps to go. If Eric Smith gets to you, do you just let him go, or do you fight it out for him if it's, you know, say it's 5 laps to go or so? Do you really fight him for that spot, knowing there's a lot more to be gained with Mike Kelly having his early exit from this race?
I think you fight him, because Eric Smith's been very clean so far, and the time difference wasn't huge between them. Thompson's laps over the race have actually not been terrible. He's been doing 206s, maybe less than a second as he hits pit road now. In terms of a second difference, that's not a huge amount at Bathurst. If you can hold him and be in the right place at the right time, you can stay ahead of him. Riley Thompson's got to think second place is better than third. I think he will choose to fight. He's definitely not going to just let him go.
I would hope, for viewership's sake, that he does fight him. I don't want to see him just roll over and let him go to play it safe. And I think you're right. You know, we talked about how few passing zones there are. If you're able to do it right, you can keep a guy behind you, but then you have to worry about the chrome horn coming out and getting moved out of the way. A guy's patience runs out, I should say, as the laps wind down. So Eric Smith maybe might get a little impatient with Riley Thompson if he feels he needs to get around him. So those are always the things you have to balance, as we see Eric Smith now starting to close in on Travis Henderson. We'll see where Riley Thompson comes out in all of this. He's down and away, just merging onto the mountain straight right now. So nice little gap back as Eric Smith just comes off of Hell Corner. So it's going to be quite the gap for Eric Smith to try and make up to Riley Thompson and Travis Henderson. So 2 cars to pass with 18, 17 laps to go now.
Now with this, that would give Matthew like over a minute of a gap. So this, you know, I'll take it to Rachel here, since, you know, she knows more about road racing than I think both of us combined. So, as someone who has a big gap to second place, as what Matthew has, which is just a little under a minute, do you take it nice and slow, try not to, you know, race extremely hard and risk overdriving the car and, you know, having a mistake, or do you just continue running your race, you know, try and push it and, you know, get the race done as quick as you can?
It depends. I mean, who are we talking about on the track in this context? Because it depends on what position you're in. The leader. No, you don't run as hard as you can. There's no point. There's absolutely no point in running as hard as you can. Right now you've got 8 seconds over second place. Chances are second place will soon be fighting third. So, if second place fights third, literally nothing to worry about. I'd be running on about 80% right now. Probably not full on 80, because Riley Thompson's still fairly quick, let's be brutally honest. But that's a huge one. The points implications of being told is huge. If Riley Thompson stays second, he cuts the lead to 38 points going into the final race, which is a last race decider. Now that, of course, we've got Mike Kelly out of this event, that means everything. Riley Thompson's going to fight, and Dunhorst knows he will fight. So suddenly you've got a situation where points are on the line. Dunhorst knows there'll be a fight. He can just wind it down, survive. There's less than 20 laps to go now, and it's looking more and more likely that it's in the bag, as long as he doesn't make a mistake. And if he'll make a mistake if he keeps pushing too hard.
Things are cycling around now. Of course, the leader still has to make his final pit stop. He hasn't visited pit road yet. The rest of the top 5 have, I believe. So it's 55 seconds back to Riley Thompson. Travis Henderson, another 4 seconds back from that. And Eric Smith, another 3 seconds back from that. So you say it's about 7 seconds from Riley Thompson in second, back to Eric Smith in fourth. So 3 cars are really going to battle it out seemingly under a blanket here sooner rather than later. And it'll probably come out somewhere around, gosh, I don't know, I think maybe 8 or 9 seconds behind the leader if he has a good pit road trip. So things could get a little bit exciting here for second, third, and fourth, and these guys are going to fight. Eric Smith, I think, has proven he's got the best pace out of all 3 of them, but Travis Henderson's putting down good lap times. Eric Smith is not running a whole lot faster than Travis Henderson, within a few tenths of a second, actually, and Riley Thompson on his outlap now. We'll see how he starts to go, and so really have some differing paces fighting over these places. I didn't really mean to rhyme that, but worked out well. And that's really, I think, going to be the exciting thing to watch here, unless there's a real big mistake up front. I think the real fight here is going to be for second, third, and fourth.
Well, we just got a report that Travis Henderson had a crash coming down on the downhill, so now that'll give up third place back to Eric Smith. So Travis has not made his stop yet, so it looks like he'll have to make it a little bit earlier, because it looks like he has significant damage. I don't know how bad the crash was, but it looks to be, oh, he's going off track, so probably have to come down pit road pretty soon rather than later. It looks like he's gonna jot down pit road right about now, so a mistake by Travis Henderson will give up third place prematurely.
Tough for Travis, who I guess was just holding on for dear life there, and didn't quite work out well for him as he sort of missed the chase altogether. Sort of took a creative line through there. I've done that. I've taken that detour a few times. It's nice. It's grass. Just make sure you get back on the road before you hit the barrier. So he'll go into his pit stall now, and that'll set up this fight for Eric Smith in third. Riley Thompson in second, who got around Henry Bennett pretty cleanly there. No problem, no hold up there. And again, the lap times looking pretty similar. Riley Thompson ran a 2:06.4, and Eric Smith ran a 2:06.2. So, Rachel, I think he said a couple tenths of a second difference is not going to make a big enough dent in that gap for Eric Smith to catch up to him anyways. And if that's the way it stays, we may not even have a fight to cover.
I think they'll close up. I think it's not quite showing yet, but we'll see that really change as soon as he gets back in kind of target range once he's pitted, so it will vary.
Certainly something to keep an eye on now as we're closing in on 15 laps to go here next time by for Matthew Thunhorst, who's driven an absolute banger of a race, I'll say. Done everything right, not put a wheel wrong, and even pressured Eric Smith into a mistake or two. One right on the rear bumper, and maybe one just playing head games. I don't know. He got into his head somehow and forced Eric Smith to make all these mistakes, and that's really the difference here today is the unforced errors for Eric Smith. But again, 98 car has been just as strong as Eric Smith in the 32. So it's been fun to watch the two of them battle, and see an error come down is the difference between those two. Taylor, if you're Eric Smith and you come out of here with a second or third place finish, you just got to be kicking yourself, right? Knowing that you had a chance at another win, and these errors really took it away.
Yeah, even though if you got second, you know, the common saying goes, second sucks. So, you know, if you could have had the win and, you know, you threw it all away because you made a pretty fatal mistake, and it sucks, you know, obviously it could have been a whole lot worse, but for Eric Smith, it could have been a whole lot better as well.
Rachel, what are you thinking right now as we're on lap 66 of 81, 15 to go? What storylines are you looking here as we move into the closing stages of this one?
I think so far the big storyline is what happens, of course, with Smith and Thompson. That's looking less and less likely, of course, as we have got some interesting racing happening at the moment, mostly amongst the lap cars. They're a lot closer than others on the racetrack, although even then most of them are pretty spread out, in fact, into various different locations. So on track it's got a bit quieter. Kanata's on pit road. I believe he has had some front end damage as well, so he's getting that thing repaired at the moment. The 97 car 5 laps down now, as it's just into that kind of pre end of race feeling at the moment, where the guys are just existing for the moment. There's a lot of lap traffic running around. Smith is trying to get past some of that now. and he'll be trying to deal with that as best he can. But with 3 cars left on the lead lap, it's go time.
It certainly is, and the lap cars again doing a nice job of taking care of the faster guys, letting them through without too much of a fight, as Eric Smith now will set up to pass Henry Bennett. We've seen Bennett quite a few times here tonight as you get the nice run down the straightaway. Bennett will move over as the race etiquette would dictate that you do, so that's real nice and tidy there. And now Eric Smith just got to continue to look out front and try and eat into the gap up to Riley Thompson as we're closing in on the end of this thing. And it's been a real pleasure to bring it here so far on LSRTV again. This is the Major Series, the Bathurst 500. I'm David Schildhouse, joined by Rachel Whiteford and Taylor Fry. Hugo Luis doing the producing here tonight, and it's been fun to watch this as we close out what's been an entertaining race. A lot of good, hard racing between a couple of dominant drivers, some unforced errors have shuffled things up a little bit, and some drama for the points leader as well, which is going to set up a real interesting run to the final checkered flag of the season at Myrtle Beach. So a lot of storylines there. Taylor, so far, what's your big takeaway from what you've seen here tonight?
Pretty much just all the storylines that we've had all throughout today. Not only have we had a guest driver pretty much dominating this race of Matthew Fedor's, but we've also had like the points leader getting out of the race due to several accidents that unfortunately hampered his performance tonight. And that's just been, basically another big storyline all throughout tonight. It's just the constant mistakes by the people up front. Eric Smith, one of the major mistakes that we've seen, just running his race out in the lead and then overdrove his car and got major front end damage. That took him out of the lead, and now, like we're seeing right now, just almost a minute between first and second, even though Matthew still has to make his final pit stop. It's just a ton of storylines. Even though the racing has been quiet, the storylines, they've been as loud.
And it's interesting. I still find it surprising, Rachel, that the leader hasn't come to pit road yet. I'm not sure how much longer he needs to stay out or what he's really gaining by staying out. I've watched the gap sort of stay the same between he and Riley Thompson, even growing a little bit, which is impressive as he's on old tires. But how long do you think he stays out? When do you think he'll come to pit road for the final time?
Well, he's comfortable. He comes when his fuel's up. Last pit stop for the leader, I'm just going to look back at his laps now, was 47. So based on that lap, it'll be 64-ish. Minus that, so 61. Okay, he's got a lot of gas, apparently. Yeah. He seems to be fine at the moment. I think he'll be coming in very shortly, if anything, but he's definitely in a position where he's run a lap or so longer than every single cycle. Let's not forget that Eric Smith. So he's got a couple of laps in the bag overall. It's cumulative.
And when you're out front with a huge lead like that, you can save gas as well. You don't have to go 100%. We've talked about he's probably going somewhere between 80 to 90%. For the very fact that you don't have to go 100% when you have that big of a lead, and even going 80 to 90% has seemingly allowed him to maintain or even grow his lead as it sits a little over 56 seconds. It was about 55 seconds after Riley Thompson took his pit service. So doing a great job if you're saving tires, saving fuel, and pulling away from drivers. Gosh, I think that's the trifecta. Well, I don't think I listed off 3 things, but who can count anyways? It's great. You're winning on all fronts, saving your equipment and pulling away. That's really a job well done.
Biggest downside to all this is Matthew can't save as much gas as he would if he ran like 70% or 80% as he would in like a stock car, because these things really can't save a whole lot of gas. Yeah, they can still save gas, but if you're running like the Infinity cars or the Sprint Cup cars or the trucks here, you can save gas a lot. It would probably be like the biggest thing in the world. Probably Matthew, if we were running the trucks here, they would probably have enough fuel to make it the rest of the way. But Matthew has to come down for one more time, just at least to splash up his car and go the rest of the way. So, if he doesn't want to take, depending on what the tire wear is here, which may be quite, tires probably are getting eaten up alive, especially in these pretty cold temperatures. You know, we said it earlier in we mentioned it briefly with the temperatures here. It's in the 60s in Fahrenheit, track and air temperature. So, you know, these tires are obviously, like, they're slick, so they're probably going to wear off a lot more than hotter temperatures.
Yeah, and you know, it's it all comes down to the driver. Obviously, he's the guy holding the steering wheel, controlling the pedals. And Rachel, you can speak to this with your experience as a sim racer yourself. When you're out front and seemingly everything is going your way, it almost seems too good to be true, and you're sort of waiting for something to go wrong, aren't you? You spend more time letting your mind wander to the things that can go wrong as opposed to the things that are going right. And so as we see Matthew Thunhorst now make that turn to pit road, how do you maintain that mental discipline to keep your mind positive and not think about the things that can go wrong and take this race win away from you?
Well, that's the thing, you know, you've also got to stay in that kind of frame of mind of I still have to race to win. You can't go full relax mode, otherwise you will make a mistake as soon as you stop trying as hard. So he has to still push very hard to keep himself in the right frame of mind, to keep himself away from errors, but at the same time he also has to remember that he doesn't have to go 100%, and that's what separates the best from the fast, because anyone can be fast, but the best know when they don't need to be.
Fair enough. Well put. As Thunhorst is in his pit stall, taking his service, assuming everything goes the way that it needs to, he'll still come out with the lead over Riley Thompson and Eric Smith. And I've been watching the gap between Thompson and Smith, maintaining somewhere around, I don't know, 7 seconds or so, I should say, between those two. And again, I'm not sure, as we've got 11 laps to go here. I'm not sure Eric Smith might catch Riley Thompson yet. Thompson's been putting down some impressive lap times as Thunhorst rejoins and merges back onto the track looking for Riley Thompson. He's just going in to Hell's Corner now, so no pressure from behind. Second place way back there. So Thunhorst can set sail, put it in cruise, probably bring home a checkered flag. But Riley Thompson, he's got to feel real good about what he's done here tonight, and even probably going to hold off maybe the likes of Eric Smith.
It's definitely possible, and I mean, Eric Smith is still holding that 8-second bracket. Last time by 2:59. Riley Thompson's definitely putting it into high gear, 2:06 dead, so the gap's not really there to gain the time back. Riley Thompson's really pushed hard now. I think when the two leaders were 8 seconds, 10 seconds ahead, Thompson really thought, I've not got a chance here. But now he's in a position where he really helps him in points. I think he's dialed it up and pushing now because he has to. And there's something actually at stake for him now with 11 laps to go. Eric Smith is closing in, but not enough.
Certainly not as much as we maybe expected him to, as he works past lapped car there very nicely. But I think we expected Eric Smith to have more pace and really reel in Riley Thompson. But yeah, a great drive in this fourth and final stint for Riley Thompson to earn that second place running position right now. And if he brings it home there, yeah, a job well done for him, for someone that capitalized on an error made by a faster driver and then really turned up the wick when it mattered the most to keep putting down ultra competitive lap times. And looking again at what they ran, Eric Smith last time by a 2:05.9 and Riley Thompson a 2:06 flat. So again, within a tenth of a second of one another, and that's really a credit to Riley Thompson upping his game and saving his best driving here for the last section of this race, Taylor. That's a job well done.
Yep. But Eric Smith has been doing this entire race, even after getting that damage. You know, he's running he's on track to get a podium as long as he doesn't, make another mistake. And Riley Thompson on track on not only getting a podium and possibly a win if he pushes hard enough, he also has a chance of getting the championship at Myrtle Beach. He'll be 38 points behind, 38-36, one of the two, and he'll be able to contend for the championship. Yeah, it's going to be quite the difficult task, but it's better to have a difficult task to win the championship, but a chance than to not have a chance at all.
Yeah, the bigger picture, the championship at hand here, as Mike Kelly's had his, well, we've documented, fair share of issues here tonight, now out of the race, not going to get a good finishing position. Riley Thompson almost maximizing in second place there. A great job, and sets up what should be a real barn burner at Myrtle Beach. But Rachel, he's got to keep that out of his mind. He has to hold on for the second place finish. The 5-point differential going from second to third, he might need those 5 points come Myrtle Beach if more bad luck goes Mike Kelly's way. Those 5 points could be ultimately the difference. So maximizing points, keeping all that stuff out of his head, the bigger picture, focusing on completing what's been a fantastic drive for him here at Mount Panorama.
Certainly has also problems on a 6, 7, 8. He's into his pit box with basically no front end on that car. So big problems there for Jess Coleman. Won't be having much fun with that one. But yeah, Riley Thompson and of course into Myrtle Beach. The difference there is we're going to have to see a whole different Mike Kelly, because Mike Kelly is very much weakened by that. He was running in a position where he had good points. For this one, he could maybe even hold the gap, something relevant, but now the gap is close enough that it's going to have to be a win or nothing. So we're going to have to see Mike Kelly go all out, pull the stops, and drop a bomb on this thing, because otherwise he's kind of screwed. And speaking of which, Eric Smith is up 2 seconds. It's getting closer. 10 to go.
10 laps to go. The gap now shrinking ever so slightly. Wasn't the greatest lap in the world for Riley Thompson there, but again, Eric Smith 206.7, Riley Thompson 206.7. So even with a less than stellar lap, apparently Eric Smith had a mistake somewhere along the way as well. So still mirroring each other, and that gap now still maintaining a little over 6 seconds between Riley Thompson and Eric Smith. No change up front, obviously, as those two guys are nearly 12 seconds back and 18 seconds back, respectively. Want to highlight the rest of the running order. 4 cars on the lead lap here. Brandon Whitworth in 4th right now. And then everyone else at least 1 lap down. Henry Bennett in 5th. He's your first car 1 lap down. We've talked about him quite a bit here tonight. Felipe Savoy, Jess Coleman, Thomas Peterson, William Fletcher, and Claude Belval round out the top 10. Some of those guys 2 laps down. So a race that has featured 2 dominant drivers in the first half of the race. A third name appears here in Riley Thompson in the closing stages of this race. But yeah, really a fight between 3 guys that really have this thing pretty well figured out. Even within the 3 of them, I think Matthew Thunhorst has it figured out the best out of those 3. Would you agree, Rachel?
I think he does. In this position he's in now, it's just easy for him. He's just got to keep himself controlled and keep himself measured, and that makes it quite interesting coming, of course, into the final round.
Well, it wouldn't be as exciting, I guess, to crown a champion without a little bit of drama or even a little bit of action there. Now a lot more on the line, Taylor, as Mike Kelly's got a week, or not even a week, we got a little bit more time. It's November 4th, so 2 weeks to think about this and think about how he needs to approach Myrtle Beach and think about what happened and what went wrong here tonight. 2 weeks is a long time to think about that, really agonize over that sort of stuff. It
is, and for a driver, 2 weeks to think about stuff, it just doesn't seem like enough, because it's kind of like when you lose a football game, you got to study the tapes, what went wrong, what you can fix, how you could have prevented this sort of stuff from happening, and if you lose the championship because of a simple mistake that you made, you kick yourself a lot, especially if it's like the second to last race. You don't want to lose the championship when you had an incredible shot of winning it. You don't want to go into the next race with confidence, with little to no confidence. You want to go into the next race, thinking high of yourself, thinking that you're going to easily get this championship. Because even though Mike Kelly has lost, basically half of the points lead, as long as he's good at Myrtle Beach, does a lot of testing, he'll be able to win the championship. It's not going to be an easy battle for either Mike Kelly or Riley Thompson to win this championship, but when they do, when one of those two wins the championship, it'll be hard fought, no doubt about it. Yeah, I think I have a good idea of how the next 2 weeks in Mike Kelly's schedule may look, and with Riley Thompson as well, who maybe thought to himself, gosh, I'm not going to have a chance coming out of Mount Panorama to win this championship, but now
again, assuming nothing else changes, boy, he's got a lot to think about over the next 2 weeks. He's going to have some testing to do as well to make sure that he is right and proper for Myrtle Beach. So at the outside of this race, it looked like it might have been an all but concluded deal, but 81 laps around the mountain can certainly prove otherwise. And Rachel, we saw it here tonight, how quickly things can change. And so if you're Riley Thompson, you got a good run going right now. You got something to look forward to in 2 weeks. And you might get yourself a championship, and you can look back at this race knowing this was the turning point.
Certainly can, but I'm right now more interested in Claude Belval and William Fletcher, who are on the racetrack now, 9th and 8th place at the moment. 56 car of Belval is catching Fletcher by absolutely loads at the moment. Closing right in there over the skyline. Big burps of smoke there from Fletcher, who's pushing hard to hold his place. As a 9th place qualifier, Belval currently in 9th, of course, hasn't really moved around. Trying to get that place back from Fletcher, who started way back outside the top 10, but has worked his way in there, of course, making some big strides. Biggest mover at the moment, though, is Philippe Savoy. He's up from 13th to 6th. That's up 7 places gained at the moment. But I'm just seeing Belval really coming on much, much faster over the mountain.
Yeah, nice run there for Claude Belval, looking good. Coming up to the chase, late onto the brakes, big dive down in there, taking a look, nothing doing. William Fletcher able to hold on to the 8th position. Struggling a little bit with some connection issues there. That's never a good thing to see as the Haviland car pops in and out on the screen as they get set up to go across start-finish line. Oh, overshot the final corner there. Easy pickings for Claude Belval. He'll take that. Thank you very much. Put Belval up to 8th as Savoy moves through now as well. Looking at these guys. Oh, Fletcher pops back in. My apologies. He was warped out once again. So Fletcher back to 9th. Belval up to 8th. Good pass there. As again, it's those unforced errors or a little bit of pressure from behind makes these guys overshoot the entry of these corners.
Yeah, it really is doing, and that's one thing you're going to be very careful about with these cars. It's very easy to overdrive them. You've got to really treat these with kid gloves. You've got to underdrive them hugely to get the most out of them speed-wise, and the slower you feel like you're going, the faster you are. Unfortunately, the more you push these cars, really harass them, it just bleeds you time, and we're seeing a lot of people burping tires like that, and it's really going to be an impact, of course. But I believe, looking what I'm seeing right now, no, they're on separate laps, so that, of course, will not impact this at all. Belval 2 laps down. Pedersen is up a lap from him. Eric Smith, what's his time looking like? Still 8 seconds. He's actually lost time to Riley Thompson, so Thompson looking safer and safer here.
Yeah, things looking really good for Riley Thompson as he has absolutely put together clearly the best laps of his race here in this final segment. And Eric Smith, maybe not the strength that we saw earlier on in the run here. So that's really the difference of what we hypothesized might be a battle between those two drivers for second and third. Really hasn't materialized. It's gone the other way, actually, as Eric Smith's now about 9 seconds back from Riley Thompson. Sort of unexpected, but you know what? Again, credit to Riley Thompson, who's a winner in this series, so we shouldn't make it seem like he has not been a top performer along the way. Definitely has shown some muscle. He got the win at Pocono, so maybe it's something about me being in the booth where he gets good runs. I don't know. I've been known to be good luck. I've been known to be bad luck, too, when I talk about drivers, as we all have. So great run nonetheless for Riley Thompson. And again, we'll hear from your top 3 finishers, Riley Thompson, Eric Smith included, assuming nothing changes. And I bet they're going to have some real interesting things to say, Taylor, about how this race has gone on for them.
Certainly, and especially when we talk to Eric Smith, you know, he's going to be a little bit ashamed that he didn't get the win tonight, but, you know, he's definitely going to feel pretty confident that he was able to salvage a top 3. And then when we, just basically all in all, with these interviews, they're going to be really interesting.
Well, it's always fun to hear from the drivers themselves, especially after they've been at it now for 2 hours and 42 minutes on the nose. Might be closer to 3 hours by the time it's all said and done. It's been a long event, tiring event. Rachel, I'm proud of you and Taylor for sticking through it. I know my voice is starting to feel a little bit of the strain, and I'm pretty sure Hugo's feeling a little bit of it as well, to bring you all the great camera angles and sounds of these wonderful race cars. But that's why we come out and do it. It's a testament to the mental strength of these guys that participate, and really a pleasure to bring it to the race fans here on LSRTV as they fight around Mount Panorama, one of the most iconic racetracks in all the world. But everyone playing in the sandbox of Matthew Thunhorst at the moment as he continues to hold on to a nearly 13-second lead.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's been a phenomenal race here, exciting. And in Bathurst isn't disappointing. We had some big crashes, some fantastic wheel-to-wheel racing. And more importantly, we've had a huge success in terms of the drivers really kicking butt out there on the racetrack, having a good time, of course, which is most important. And we've had fun watching it and bringing it to you guys. So Bathurst never disappoints, ever.
Generally, it only disappoints those that don't have a good run, and those are the guys that aren't liking it so much. But sure is fun to watch, and you know, we get the pleasure of seeing these guys from a different perspective. I certainly wouldn't want to be out there driving. I would have been parking it a long time ago. But these guys putting on a great show, and a lot of fun to see it here on the screen, and do some virtual racing from Australia.
I do have to say that if I was one of these drivers, I'd probably be the first retiree in no time. I mean, Bathurst is definitely one where it takes a lot of skill, talent, patience. It takes a lot of stuff to run this track, not only nice and clean, but, you know, with a lot of speed. And that's what a lot of these drivers have, is talent. You know, it takes a lot of talent to, you know, win the championship in the major series because of how diverse everything is. And well, it's showing here tonight that a lot of these drivers, you know, even though we only have 4 drivers on the lead lap, Bathurst is a challenging road course, so it's not too unexpected to see this sort of stuff. But what is unexpected is how clean Matthew is running. I mean, we do expect to see at least one driver make a mistake, and I don't think we've seen Matthew make one big mistake in this entire race. Hopefully I didn't jinx that.
No, we certainly haven't. And wow, the gap between Eric Smith and Riley Thompson has widened 12 seconds now. 12 whole seconds. He's lost 4 total right now. And you know what? Time's important. And Joel Real Timing brings coverage of the Majors Series to you. It's the official timing software of LSRTV, and whether you spend your time in the sim behind the wheel, on the pit box, or from the spotter stand, JRT is the go-to software for iRacing, timing, and scoring analytics. In fact, it's what we use here to bring you the timing and scoring. Get yourself a basic download or get the pro version today at joel-real-timing.com.
Absolutely, those guys, Joel Real Timing, making it possible for us to keep track of where everybody is and bring it to you as well, so you know how big of a beatdown Matthew Thunhorst is putting on these guys. 12 seconds back to him, another 12 seconds back to Eric Smith. So things in gaps of 12 right now. Some people will appreciate the pattern there. Brandon Whitworth up to 4th. We saw Travis Henderson running inside the top 5 earlier on. Had a little bit of a struggle. He's finding himself now 3 laps down in 10th. When you think about that, Rachel, 3 laps down in 10th, my goodness. These guys are really losing a lot of time when things go wrong. You can still get a top 10 and be 3 laps off the pace.
Yeah, the pace is so critical here, and it varies so much. And it's one of the challenging tracks where it's just so hard to actually see what is going down. You know, they're putting it as much as they can. I mean, look at the practice times. The variety was a whole 15 seconds separating the field. That's a huge amount. You know, you talk about normally drivers within a second of each other. It doesn't exist in Bathurst. It's drivers within 10 seconds of each other.
Not as close. It's not as close as oval racing, where, you know, the farthest you will probably be is like a couple seconds behind. Here we have drivers who are more than 15, 20, 30, 40, more than a minute behind the nearest driver. So, you know, that's what road course racing is the bigger the track, the bigger the gap. And you know, Bathurst is one of the bigger tracks that the major series goes to, so the gaps are definitely going to be quite big for a grid of 21 drivers. Gaps are going to be big.
Well, you want to talk about a big gap shrinking. I just saw 3 seconds or almost 4 seconds fall off the lead of Matthew Thunhorse as he got trapped behind Marshall Williams through the S's. Really hurt his lap time badly as the lead fell down under 9 seconds back to Riley Thompson. So that's something that just wasn't expecting to see, and I looked up and had to do a double take. Thankfully, Joel Real Timing is able to capture that and make sure that it is correct. So that was kind of a moment there. I was looking to see if maybe Thunhorse spun or something like that, but just the lap car. Oh, Riley Thompson into the barrier. Oh no, he's thrown away. Maybe it's the second place finish. Can he get going in front of Eric Smith? The rear end
likely.
Completely destroyed on the number 58.
His tracking's off. His tracking's off. The wheels are seriously damaged there. He is actually...
Oh no.
Yeah, his tracking's out. This is huge implications for him because he might not be able to finish this race at the state he's in. He needs to go down pit road now.
Oh,
he has 2 minutes to Whitworth. He has 2 minutes to Whitworth. Go down, get the fast repair, get out there and get third. Third is still huge. His tracking's quickly off. He's knocked the wheels completely out of alignment. He needs that spare car. He can hold third easily. There's 2 minutes to Brandon Whitworth. He's plenty of time, but he has to get down there now. No tires, no fuel, fast repair, go.
He is. If you look at his in car, he's just keeping that wheel just stick to the right. That is hard to keep that thing straight. He's knocked that thing so much out of damage. Oh, now he's going up
into the sand trap now. Things going from bad to worse. You don't want to make a bad situation impossible to recover from. Riley Thompson has got to limp that thing to pit road very carefully. Just got behind on his steering. Looking back at the replay, he's not going to pit road.
What the hell are you doing? I don't know what he's doing.
I don't understand why he's not taking it. Curious decision by Riley Thompson not to bring the car to pit road. Maybe he thinks he can limp it around in this state for another 2 laps. I don't know about that. I wouldn't do that.
He'll lose that time.
There's too much time. He's gonna lose the podium. He went down pit road, used that fast repair. He would have been able to keep third potentially.
Unless he doesn't have one.
Oh, that could be the case.
He also could have required repairs. May not have the fast repair. And if he goes in, he's probably got a black flag already. If the race finishes before the 4 laps is up, he's okay. He may have to hope he stays here, but worst case, he finishes 4th.
So looking at where the new game is, where's Brandon Whitworth? He's just going down the middle of the Conrad straight right now. So about a half a lap behind Riley Thompson. So I don't know. I mean, word has to have been given to Brandon Whitworth that the 58 is severely wounded, limping around the racetrack, and he has the opportunity, if he can catch him, to get onto the podium. Riley Thompson has to do everything he can to keep this thing straight, not be in the way of any other cars coming behind him, as there will be some race cars coming up to pass him too. So, wow, what a lot of drama that just takes place here in the last couple laps.
I have to say, the amount of practice time that Riley has had this race week, I don't think he's ever practiced for keeping the car straight by holding the wheel right.
I don't think most people would practice that, but a good point nonetheless, Taylor, is that what he's doing right now is so incredibly difficult, and he's maintaining, as much speed as he can. If he makes it through this section, oh gosh, hold on to it.
He's gonna have to cut through it. There's no way he's gonna make it through the S's like that.
No, and so now at this point he's racking up incident points and maybe time penalties too. So the time penalties may negate whatever he keeps on the racetrack to try and stay in front of Whitworth. I don't know how he's going to make this work, but my God, there it goes, looping around again. That's not going to work. Yikes. This has gone to tatters for him.
Yep, now he's going to be difficult to get that thing out of there without towing it. I think that may be what he's...
Yeah, sideways, sticking out on the track, that is not optimal. As Stavoy barely makes it by. Oh, Peterson barely makes it by as well. He's got to do this quick, as here comes Jess Coleman. Look out. Coming through. My goodness gracious. It is just all gone wrong for Riley Thompson.
Whitworth is descending. Whitworth is descending just out the dipper. This is going to be an easy third place for Brandon Whitworth, unfortunately. Riley Thompson's race has gone from worst to just plain retire it. I mean, he could theoretically hold on for 4th place, but I don't even know how this car is still technically not meatballed.
Exactly.
We talked about he just needed to take care of it. He had 12 or 13 seconds over Eric Smith, and even taking care of it, that's how difficult this racetrack is
He's risking the race
to
here.
hold on to it. Yeah, and he just got behind on his steering in the S's, and an unforced error. We've talked about it so many times tonight. Eric Smith losing the lead a few times because of it. Now Riley Thompson. And this has championship implications on the line. He had the opportunity to make up a lot of points on Mike Kelly. Now he's going to lose a few more positions, and that's 5 points apiece, I believe. So he could be losing 10 to 15 points here that he shouldn't have lost had he not made that mistake.
He has to survive 2 more laps. He's going to go down a lap at this rate. This is actually kind of sad at this point.
The white flag is in the air for Matthew Thunhorst, so all the razzle-dazzle behind him. Boy, he's glad he's up by 24 seconds over Eric Smith. Probably going to take it real easy on the last lap here. Coronation of a well-deserved win for Matthew Thunhorst, his one guest appearance here in the Atlantic Division for the Major Series, the Bathurst 500. And he's made the most of his opportunity to come out and put a pretty good show on. Battled Eric Smith for a while. Those two were very even, but no mistakes made by Thunhorst, and that's really going to be the difference here tonight, Rachel, is he's going to take that car most likely to victory lane. He's got to complete the lap, but flawless performance nonetheless by him, and he's going to reap the rewards.
Oh, absolutely, and it should do exactly that for him. It's just sad things have turned around in such a strange way for the rest of the field in this one. But yeah, absolutely, it's certainly become one of those things that's been quite a surprise overall in this race. I'm still a little bit shocked by what's been going on here, but no, it's been a phenomenal race regardless of this, and we've had an amazing time here at Bathurst.
Just as a side note, Eric Smith did loop it coming off of Murray's corner, coming to the white flag as well. So I don't think he's going to be in a position to lose out on second place, but tough going there. Another error for Smith, but in the end, it's not going to amount to much more than just a little noise, as he'll probably hold on for a second place finish here. But Thunhorst, for the last time, works his way down the Conrad Straight, gets set up for the chase one last time through there. Take it nice and easy, set up for Murray's corner. He's going to have himself a checkered flag here in the Major Series. We look forward to hearing from him post-race on his performance here under the Armor All Bridge. One lap car there in front of him. Brandon Whitworth, the third place driver, no need to pass him. Nice clean exit off the corner. Checkered flag in the air. It's going to be Matthew Thunhorst taking down the win at Mount Panorama. Well done for him in a race full of attrition, spins, mistakes, and other kinds of drama. Matthew Thunhorst, I should say, going to reign supreme here at the mountain. King of the mountain, we'll call him. Taking home a very, very big and impressive win.
Certainly has been an amazing race overall. What a race we've seen today. I've been impressed by this one. These guys have done a phenomenal job and put on a huge show for us today.
Has second place even finished the race yet? I'm not sure. There he is across the line. Eric Smith, there he is, second place for him. So disappointing. It's probably going to be the most disappointing second place finish of his career. We'll hear from him after the race as well. Give these guys a chance to cycle through. There's Riley Thompson limping it across in fourth place, barely beating Henry Bennett back to the line. That was actually pretty close.
Well, we do know that the biggest heartbreak of the race does have to go to Riley. He was on track for second, and then just in the final few laps, it just all went down. Lost it, got severe damage, got passed for not only second, but passed for third. So it's unfortunate we won't be able to hear from him, and but it's only going to make Myrtle Beach a lot harder than he wanted it to.
We'll recap the finishing positions here from Mount Panorama once we come back on the other side of the commercial break, and then we'll try and hear from our top three finishers. Don't go anywhere. This has been the Major Series on LSRTV. We'll see you back here in just a couple of minutes. Welcome back here to Bathurst. Just completed 81 laps around the mountain, Mount Panorama. We did claim one victor out of the field. That was Matthew Thunhorst taking home what looks on paper to be a very dominating win, but it wasn't without its fair share of fights. David Schildhaus here alongside Rachel Whiteford, Hugo Luis producing this thing, and we had our good friend Taylor Fry here as well. He had to scoot out, so we'll get to our look at the finishing order here. As I said, Matthew Thunhorst brings home the win. Eric Smith in second place. Brandon Whitworth comes home on the podium in third. Riley Thompson, the heartbreak there in the closing laps, limps home to a fourth place finish. Henry Bennett in fifth. Philippe Savoy, I should say, there in sixth. Thomas Peterson seventh. Claude Belval in eighth. William Fletcher ninth. And Travis Henderson comes home in 10th.
11th place tonight is going to be Andy Banfield, with Rory Collins, Jess Coleman, Jason Wallett, and Joshua Kanata in 15th place, with Marshall Williams, Mike Kelly, Samuel Doherty, Michael Lane, Daniel Knight, and Terry Wellman.
So there you go, 21 finishers there, only 3 on the lead lap. Hard-fought win, is some big gaps between guys, as you see on the screen there, almost a 40-second victory for Matthew Thunhorst, but he earned it, and he kept his car on the track every lap, didn't make any mistakes, didn't put a wheel wrong, and it results in a checkered flag for him here. So let's hear from him. Let's get him in here, talk to him, get his thoughts as the race winner in his one lone start here in the Atlantic Division. And that's going to be the driver of the number 98, Matthew Thunhorst, bringing him in, and hear his thoughts here after claiming the win at Mount Panorama. Matthew Thunhorst, David Schildhaus up in the LSRTV booth. Do you have a copy?
Yeah, y'all got me?
Yes, sir. Loud and clear. Well, congratulations. Your first and only start here in the division, the Atlantic Division, I should say, and it results in a win, a pretty big win, almost 40 seconds. You had yourself a pretty hard-fought battle there for the first half, and then everything just sort of went to tatters for everybody else. You end up with a nice big win. Tell us about your race.
There, for the most part, I had ended up racing against Blake Reynolds here last year, and it was funny, the first kind of up to the first pit stop played out exactly the same between me and Eric, and I got a lead and he wanted to battle there with me, and I let him go because I saw Riley was coming, and I just rode behind him, and up until that point after the second pit stop where it was me and Eric, I mean, we were right there, and it was whoever made the first mistake was going to lose. And I will say kudos to him. When he spun out, he could have done me dirty and tried to take me with him, but he was real classy about it, so I appreciate that. And it was a blast racing him. I just hate that both him and Riley couldn't finish it off because they were both strong competitors.
Clearly 3 very strong drivers here tonight, you being one of them. You listed off the other 2. We'll talk to one of them. Riley Thompson, unfortunately, had an issue late in the going, which knocked him out of the top 3, but seemingly a 3-car race without the mistakes. It would have been really exciting between the 3 of you to battle it out. But when you're out there in front and you see the guys behind you have their issues, and all of a sudden you see your gap widen, how does that change your mentality to approach what was a very grueling and challenging race already?
Well, it's always difficult to see that somebody else has had an issue because you're like, oh, wait, what just happened? And then, your focus kind of gets away, and it's like, okay, quick, I got to hurry up and get my focus back before I just do what they did. And so there were a couple laps where that would happen, and then you had to get the focus back. And then after like that final pit stop, I saw Riley was catching me, and I was like, okay, we just got to push. I got less fuel, fresh tires. We just got to push. And once I saw that they had their issues, I pushed it back to 90% and still tried to do good laps, and just took my time because I didn't want to lose this race in the last laps due to a silly mistake.
Well, you did a masterful job getting around the mountain here. Didn't put a wheel wrong all night from what I could see. And you make your one stop over here. So how good does it feel to make your one trip over to this division and take the checkered flag away from these guys?
Well, I'll be honest. I came over here to try to duke out with Mike Kelly because we're both great plains drivers. So I want to go kind of toe-to-toe with him. So I was a little disappointed not to see him. But I had one heck of a battle with Eric and Riley. And they might have had problems, but they shouldn't be ashamed of how they did tonight, and because it was one heck of a race. And quick shout out though, Brian Bennett, he'll be racing over in Pacific here, but he was on the box for me, giving me moral support, and he just made it so much easier to try to stay straight and not have any issues with him on the box. So shout out to him.
Absolutely. 3 hours of racing. You're probably pretty tired, but I'll let you get going to recuperate after this one. But one last opportunity to give any shout outs to friends, family, sponsors, and everyone else who helps get you here to the racetrack.
I just want to give a shout out to the Alliance team in general. We're fighting a really hard fought battle over in the Pacific region against Rakayo for the constructors. So this will help. And I'm able to race so well because I have guys like that around me. So shout out to them.
Very nice. Claims the checkered flag here at one of the toughest tracks on the schedule, Mount Panorama. Matthew Thunhorst, fantastic job in that number 98. Congratulations and good luck the rest of the season. One race to go. Hope you can get that championship.
Thank you.
There's your winner, Matthew Thunhorst. Sounds a little tired, but definitely excited to get that checkered flag. As well, he should be, because it ain't easy to win here. And, well, I guess we'll move on. Rachel will bring in our second place finisher, Eric Smith. I'm sure he's got a lot to talk about, and I'll give you the opportunity to pick his brain a little bit. We'll get him in here now and see what he has to say.
Certainly well. Thank you very much, David. Eric Smith with us right now. And Eric, what a race you've had tonight. Second place in the end there after big problems for Riley Thompson. You guys were duking it out all race long yourself, of course, and Matt Thunhorst. But a couple of little errors, including one crash, resulting in you pitting, stretching that second to last stint just so you could make the pit window before you came in to repair the car. Is that where things kind of went awry? Well, yes, Rachel, that's where things went awry for me in the race today. Unfortunately, after the crash, it just didn't quite have the same speed. And are you there, Eric?
Hey, you got me?
Oh, we've got you, yes. Okay, so Eric, fantastic result today, second place. Great points for you, of course, but a little error earlier on, a crash, and just lost that chance to fight it out with Matthew Thunhurst at the end. But the Riley Thompson accident, was that a godsend for you in terms of points?
Yeah, just unfortunate. Couldn't get it back after that. Matthew was just there the whole time. It was great racing.
It certainly was. And Bathurst, V8 Supercars, a very tricky combination. Is this your road main driver, should we say, or are you more of an oval guy?
Oh, yeah, I'm definitely more of the road guy. That's kind of what I do in the official series. I used to be a little bit of oval, but I pretty much just do roads now.
Well, a phenomenal run, regardless. A very difficult track, of course, onto Myrtle Beach next week for some short track, late model racing. But anybody you'd like to give a shout out to today? Any sponsors?
Just shout out to V8 great team. They helped a lot getting ready for this week. Andy did well in 11th. Shout out to the guy who made this toolkit setup, because that's pretty much what I ran. It was really fast.
Well, there you go. Congratulations, Eric Smith, second place tonight. David?
Thank you.
All right, there you go. That's second place finisher, Eric Smith. And now we're going to catch up with our third place finisher. Probably wasn't expecting to be here, Brandon Whitworth. You got a copy?
I do.
Well, here you are on the podium, third place finish here at Mount Panorama. Seemingly set up for not a top three, and then Riley Thompson runs into issues, and all of a sudden you're chasing him down while he's driving around a broken race car. What did you think, or did you even know that he had an incident?
I figured it out pretty quick once I caught up to him.
Yeah, nothing better to point it out than when you see him out the windshield. So at that point, puts you up into the podium. A great run overall. How do you feel coming away after 3 hours with the third place finish after starting sixth?
I feel pretty good. I would have been happy with fifth or even just fourth, because I didn't have a lot of time to prepare for this race. But I felt pretty comfortable in the car. Clearly, I didn't have the speed that some of these other guys had, but I kept it out of the wall for the most part, so it worked out.
Well, from where we were sitting up in the booth, the guys that get out of the wall were the guys that generally had the best runs. And so good on you for keeping it out of the wall, doing what you needed to do to keep it straight and clean to get a top three finish. So what does a run like that mean for you with one race left in the season? How does that set you up to finish off what's been a very enjoyable season so far here for the Major Series?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty well in the standings. I don't think I can catch Riley or Mike. I haven't really dug into the points yet, but I just go down to Myrtle Beach and do the best I can on a short track. That should be entertaining.
We're certainly hoping so, and we think it will now with Mike Kelly having the issues that he had today. He brought it home 17th. You finished third, so you make up some good points on him there. And even Riley Thompson was in a position to make up a lot of points and still will, not as much as he could have. So when we get updated points, Myrtle Beach might be a very interesting place, maybe even an outside chance should things go really awry for you to throw your hat in there to make a bid for that championship. So Brandon, one race left in the season. Made it to the podium here tonight. I'll give you the opportunity to say hello to your friends, family, and sponsors, and anyone else that helps get you here.
Yeah, I'd like to say thanks to my family, my wife Jen, daughter Abby, and of course Mike Roulette for organizing the league. Puts together a good league. It's a lot of fun.
We certainly enjoy covering. So we'll come out one more time in 2 weeks at Myrtle Beach. We'll look forward to seeing you there. Brandon, congratulations again. Third place tonight.
Thanks.
Third place finisher Brandon Whitworth there, sharing his thoughts. Again, common theme, sounds a little bit tired, Rachel. After 3 hours around here, I'm already exhausted and I wasn't doing any driving.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's one of those times where it's just been such a crazy run, and yeah, the drivers are exhausted. It's a really tough racetrack, and they did a great job.
Absolutely. A lot of fun to cover here on LSRTV, and that sets it all up for the series finale. 2 weeks from tonight, November 4th, the Myrtle Beach 400. You'll catch it right here on LSRTV, so make sure you come back and check that out. As far as what's coming up next, you can come back tomorrow night, October 22nd, for the Real Sim Racing Cup Series. Coverage is going to start around 9:35 Eastern Standard Time for coverage of that series, so we'll see you then. It's been a fun race here at the Mountain. Mount Panorama Bathurst 500 goes to Matthew Thunhorst. Great run for him. For Rachel Whiteford and Hugo Luis, also Taylor Fry as well for peeking in here on the announcer's boost. I'm David Schildhouse, thanking you for making us a part of your day wherever you turned in from. We'll look forward to seeing you next time here on your home for live sim racing, LSRTV.